And once again, hello and welcome to SkyTour LiveStream for the 31st of May. It's really a stunning night. I wish that, this is an astronomer talking, I wish the moon wasn't here so we could actually see some of the deep sky objects a little more clearly. But I am here with Daryl Mason, who is, of course, an unparalleled astronomer who knows the sky very well and has been such an incredible, source of stories for the hunt for Comet Swan. I know, right? Well, Comet Swan is below our horizon right now, or at least in the trees, so we can't really see it now. And with the moon out, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's really going to be hard to see through trees anyway. I want to say hi to Tara. Hello, Laura Newbert. Hi, Marianne. And you guys, and Daisy and Zoe and Bobby Burgess. Good to see you guys. We are here to see how far we can go tonight. It actually looks like it's going to be a beautiful, clear night. My computer was not working well, and I've got it running right now at the moment. But I am astonished at how beautiful the moon looks tonight. And give you an idea, let me bring it in. We'll just take a photo so you can actually see what I was looking at earlier. I've taken 1 million photos of it so far. Well, not 1 million because my machine only started working. And you know, in my view over here, you see me, but I've got all kinds of stuff to show you tonight. Let's see. Let's just take a 60th of a second at ISO 50. So pretty nice. Ready? Here we go, and boom. And we look at that. It's beautiful. The moon is stunning. And the sky is really performing well tonight. We have a gorgeous view of the mountains over by Copernicus here. And look at that ridge. This is stunning. Really, really pretty. And as we move down, and we'll be checking them out later too. We're going to be going into some of these things with more detail. I remember one night we were actually looking for this the other night. It's called the Straight Wall, otherwise known as Rupees Recta, which Daryl was just talking about before we went live. We actually went and looked at it together just a little while ago. He saw it on the image that I had taken and said, "Hey, can you go back to that?" And sure enough, there it is. And
my favorite things.
That is your favorite thing, isn't it? I'm going to I have to change the volume here, and I've got to alter the mix. Can you talk again for me, Daryl?
Sure.
There you go.
Director there.
Yep. Okay, I got that. So you're in with me now, and everybody else is here and watching. The important people are here. Okay.
Eyes and potent.
That's right. That wind you might hear might be coming from inside the dome. I don't know if that was Daryl or whatever. It's not me here in the office, in our astronomy chamber. But I was aware that there were sounds coming from the dome because there's a lot of wind out there right now. And of course, vehicles passing by, as you can hear.
I hear that.
Yeah. Sounds like a C-130 Hercules going over. So
We
I
get
just...
those here.
What's that?
We have a squadron of C-130s at the local Air Force base. And sometimes they go out and fly touch and goes at night. You know, one by one.
Yeah.
You'll hear plane after plane pass
You
over.
can't miss those engines. I'm showing this crater because of this song. For those of you that are movie buffs, you know what this song is. It's the Blue Danube Waltz. And the Blue Danube Waltz is one that Stanley Kubrick used in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And of course, this is Clavius, the crater that is well known as having the moon base in it, that Haywood Floyd, the scientist, went to inspect the black monolith that was over in Tycho, which was TMA Anomaly 1, I believe. TMA Anomaly 1, was it?
Yep.
And this
TMA
is...
1.
Yep, TMA 1. This is Tycho, and this is Clavius. So it's sort of like a 2001: A Space Odyssey night. Yeah, it's really cool, and the views of the moon tonight are really stupendous. I mean, we have this gorgeous clarity tonight. We call that transparency of the sky, where you can actually see some really, really nice detail. And I'm sure globular clusters are going to be gorgeous tonight, too. We're going to try and check those out as well. And the transparency is great. The seeing is also good as well. The seeing is how much the sky jitters because of upper level disturbances. And so if the stars are twinkling a lot, then the seeing is not very good, you know. So hello to Motley and Flames of War, who just joined us, and Roxana. Hey, look who's here. Roxana is here. It's so nice to see Roxana here. She runs a beautiful Facebook group called Starlight, StarRRLIGHT. So those of you that get a chance, make sure you go there and ask to be part of it, because Starlight's a wonderful group of people that are interested in the extraterrestrial life question. You'll enjoy it, because I sure do. I sure do. It's been a long week here for me. It's been a lot of things going on, but we're actually able to do the stream tonight. If you'll notice, I'm not on the radio. We usually have a radio show from 8 to 10, and I had to beg off of it because the computer was not working. And the stream, I was hoping to stream by 9, and I couldn't. And I got the computer running by around 9:10, 9:15. And so I changed the stream time to 9:30. So I apologize for any misleading there. But man, it's just gorgeous. Look. We should just take some time to explore and discuss what we see. You know? What do you want to do, Daryl? You want to poke around the moon tonight?
I think that's the plan, isn't it?
Doesn't have to be. We're going to look at some clusters, too.
Well, check out the moon while we got it.
Oh, you got it. It's really, really pretty. Yeah, there's Copernicus crater right here. Right, Copernicus. You can see that very complex central peak system in Copernicus, and you see that it's in shadow as partly lit up because the sun is at a low angle relatively. And Copernicus has these beautiful rays that you can see. They're very delicate and gossamer rays that go out. Kind of not exactly the same as Tycho, which has this gigantic blast of rays that goes out from it like this. And those rays are called ejecta. This is material that was blown out of the crater as it was made by the impactor. And
Hi, Amanda.
No, Amanda, I did not. I did not forget about something. And I think what she's asking is, did you forget that I want to be part of this? I want you to be part of this. I sent her a message, and I was hoping you'd show up. So yes, I'm going to add you right now. And here we go.
Everything better with Amanda.
That's right. So now we're actually going to get Amanda in here with us as well, and I'll adjust the mix if I have to make sure that all of our voices are equal. Amanda's a little louder than all of us, though, of course. And she's here now. Hello, Amanda.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Daryl.
Nice to hear you, Amanda. I'm glad you could join us.
I was waiting, yeah.
Well, I didn't know if you were waiting, because I don't know if over on your in Skype, if you said I'm here and ready, because I was just over there with Daryl. Saw me go over there, and you had not left me a message yet, and that's right before we started. So I figured that you would have joined us when you could. She's still with us, right?
Here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got some nice people here tonight, and
Hello, nice people.
yeah.
Hope everyone had a nice weekend.
Oh, weekend was interesting. Yep. How was yours?
Chaos.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm familiar with Chaos. Yep. Yeah, so we were saying before, I don't know if you heard, but this song is appropriate because with this crater on the moon and this song you hear, this is the Blue Danube Waltz, right? And the Blue Danube figures very highly into the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And
I was actually talking about that just a few hours ago. I said that exact same thing.
Wow. Well, this is Clavius Crater, which is where the moon base is in 2001: A Space Odyssey. And Tycho is up here, and that's where the anomaly was, that monolith that was discovered. TMA-1, as Daryl had reminded me. It's really cool. Yep. Hello, Johnny. Johnny U is here.
Hi, Johnny.
Yeah, and so if you notice, the moon is looking spectacular tonight. I'm going to take us back to the live shot so we can actually grab some more live views. I'm also going to bring the telescope back online. That tells me where I have to go with the dome at times. And the time is approaching where we're going to be getting out to Arizona to build the observatory. That's going to happen on June 24th. The team is coming out to build the building out in the desert. And I just got to make sure that everybody's okay with that, with the whole corona crap. And if they are, we're underway. Hello, Carol Carl. Carol Carl is also a KGRA radio host. Every Friday night at 7, I believe, it's Behind the Obsidian Curtain with Carol Carl. She has a great show.
Daisy and Zoe asked a question. May I answer them?
Yeah, well, read the question first so we know what it is.
Okay. Well, I'm flipping screens here. Let me get back just a second.
Yeah, sure.
I got here late. Sorry, I missed the question, but I'm here now, so keep them coming.
Who gets to name lunar craters?
Oh, that's a very good question, Daisy and Zoe. Sure, go for it, Daryl.
Back in the day, I don't know who would have done it back in the good old days, just sort of a popular thing. They started naming craters, astronomers did, what you'd call a professional astronomer nowadays, I suppose, after famous ancient people. Nowadays, the International Astronomical Union gets to name all astronomical objects, including lunar craters.
Those killjoys.
Yeah. Basically, if we can see it on the moon, it has a name. I mean, it may be an appended name after a larger nearby object, but pretty much anything you can see on the moon has a name now. Yep. And it's a body of professional astronomers who they choose the names. And this, coincidentally, is why those name a star things are totally bogus.
Yes.
Don't ever sign up to name a star because they have no force.
They're not
they
recognized.
Will sue the heck out of you if you challenge them, but they have no power to name any astronomical object. Yeah. Only the International Astronomical Union has that power.
Yep. The IAU does not recognize the Name a Star Foundation or anything like that. So you get a finder chart to your star, and who knows? It's probably been in somebody else's hands too. It's probably someone else's star as well.
Yep. What's sad about that is they take advantage of mourning people who are in mourning for lost loved ones, and that is what a whole lot. That is, people in mourning are great big customers of the Name a Star thing. They want to commemorate their lost loved ones, of course, and they have absolutely no power under law to do that, but they do it anyway. And all they're doing is they're taking money from the pockets of people who have lost loved ones. So there you go.
In their mind, they're satisfying a deep-seated need to honor someone who was lost, and so they justify it that way. Now, on one hand, you can say, "Is that a beautiful thing?" And on the other hand, you can say, "It seems sort of like predatory."
Yep.
So.
if it was true and they could really do it, it would be lovely. But
yeah, I mean, and to actually do something like that does take a lot of effort. I think I told you the story about how I got the imagery from one of the scientists that landed a probe on an asteroid during the near-Earth asteroid rendezvous. Her name was Mary Ellen Murphy. She was an Irish nun, actually. She was a Catholic Irish nun. And she happened to be a good friend of a relative who was also a Catholic nun. And when she was here, she was a little unassuming, little white-haired old lady. And she sat at my dining room table and told me how she really liked the Hubble telescope. And, I'm guilty of having sized her up as being, someone who doesn't know anything about astronomy, because she was a nun, number one. Number two, she was a white-haired old lady. I mean, what could she couldn't possibly be studying the universe, right? Well, I showed her beautiful photos of from the Hubble, and I told her what they were. And I started explaining how stars are formed, and the relative of mine who was a nun sitting at the table starts laughing at me. And I go, what are you doing, Florence? Her name was Florence. And she goes, I'm sorry, I can't let this go on any longer. I go, what'd I do? She points at Mary Ellen and says, she's an astrophysicist. And she was.
That's pretty rich.
Yeah, and so I was like, really? And then Mary Ellen would never, ever toot her own horn. And Florence said, oh my gosh, you have no idea. She goes, this is the only woman in human history to land a probe on an asteroid. I go, what? She was a bigwig on the Near-Earth Asteroid Rendezvous Project. And I was like, oh, I'm not worthy. I did. And I said, well, I'll just take these back. She goes, no, you don't understand. I know about asteroids, but I don't know about nebulae. This is fantastic. You are telling me things that I did not know. So I was like, wow, fantastic. So we were actually, we were friends for many, many years, and she passed away a few years ago. So to honor her, the OSIRIS-REx probe was going out to an asteroid. Asteroid Bennu, I believe. And it was going to do sample return and so on. And so I asked the OSIRIS-REx team if they would include or if they were going to include any microdots, to put on the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft. And they said yes. And I said, can I give you some submissions? And they said yes. So I sent photos of Mary Ellen Murphy to be put on, and Mary Ellen Murphy is now at Asteroid Bennu. It's really
cool.
Nice. Yeah, it's really cool. Now that's the real thing. Okay, that's the real thing, and it took a couple of months to orchestrate all that. So it is what it is. If it comforts you, I say, go for it. If it's something that looks shady to you, then just steer clear, and
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Can we go back to Rupee's Rector there for a second?
We can.
Upper right quadrant.
Yeah, I see it. I also want people to notice this coloration here. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, this is what Daryl's talking about. This is Rupee's Rector. This is otherwise known as the straight wall. Go ahead, Daryl.
Okay. Yeah, it's called the straight wall or Rupee's Rector. One of my favorite lunar objects. You see right now it's dark, and what that is, it's like a long, I think it's a rather shallow ridge, and the sun is to the ridge's right from our point of view right now, so we see it as a dark line. Like the cliff face or bluff face is in shadow. After full moon, it will change from a dark line to a bright line, because the sun will then be to the left, and it will be lighting up that cliff face.
Yep.
We can't quite see it well right here, but whenever I see Rupee's Rector, it makes me think of the shape of like a cavalry saber, a sword. The grip, the handle of the sword is down to the lower right now. And it really jumps out at you sometimes. It looks almost like a cavalry saber, like from the 1800s or something. It's really cool looking.
Wow.
That's it. Thanks for letting me share that.
Sure.
Go check out those colors.
Yeah, this, and if you're interested, like this crater right here is called Thebit, or Thebit, Thebit. And to give you an idea of size, okay, Thebit is 56 kilometers in diameter. So this crater is 56 kilometers in diameter right here. Okay, so Rupes recta is well over 120 kilometers long, at least. And I guess, actually, it's 130 kilometers long, I believe. So it's a really, really beautiful location. This seems to be about the right diameter right here. So I'm that's pretty cool. Yeah, and Rupes recta is a lot of fun. It's fun to look at in the telescope too, when you're looking for it. Now the other thing is, you'll notice that we've talked about this before. When we look at the moon, we notice there's different colors, right? We actually see right here, there's some different colors here. These lavas here are a very different color. All right, let me get up to them. All right, these lavas are a very different color. You can see a really sharp boundary. And it looks sharp because we're so far away. We get closer, it kind of be more of a blend. This is a different type of lava that erupted on the surface than this right here, which itself is different from this right here. See that? Really interesting. This stuff is just the moon is made of green cheese. No, the moon is made of many different elements of of lavas, and the different compositions can make this happen. Okay, I like, when we look at this guy right here. Okay, this lava right here, okay, is a lighter color. This one up here is actually sort of that brownish, and it's got a tint to it that you can't mistake, right? And then over here, okay, we have this lava right here, which actually has a more gray look, and it's more of a true gray. Really interesting stuff. And so when we look at these different lavas, we go, wow, it's an interesting pattern that they generate. How did this happen? We don't have all the answers. We know that there's different materials underneath the lunar surface that get erupted in an impact. But then we have this guy over here. This is actually rather startling, because at this point in the lunar cycle, it's illuminated quite brightly, So now I don't know what makes this stuff, this color brown, right? But it's really an impressive color, And you can tell that it probably came from this set of impacts that created this. Like this set of impacts right here, this little string of impacts probably created this. This could be some type of a soft ejecta pattern, for all we know. I can definitely see some structure here. It'd be really cool to see that in more detail.
There are some really deep exposures of the face of the moon out there.
Yeah, there are.
And there are probably multiple exposures that are all stacked. That really brings out the colors of the different impacts and stuff. And evidently, I guess they say, it's like different elements or compounds. Some of them look quite lurid, the colors. They have it so jacked up, it's not particularly realistic looking, but it is an accurate reflection of the different substances on the face of the moon.
Yeah. And what we can do is, with some of the satellites and probes that go over the moon, we can actually get the spectra, do a spectrographic study of the material that's reflecting light back to us from the moon, and that will give us the chemical composition of some of these materials. And doing that is something that has done wonders for us over the years. This is how we actually learned that the moon's composition is very much like the Earth's, when it shouldn't be. When we consider that it was supposedly created by having an early Earth struck by a Mars-sized body, So I think that's a pretty cool, pretty cool thing,
Yeah.
Yep. So, I don't know if I missed any questions, Amanda, because you're in chat. I see doing some things, so I'm not sure if you.
No direct questions coming up yet, but
Okay.
I am in chat, so any questions, if there's anything specific you guys want to see, and we can, let us know. We'll do our best.
Awesome. Okay. So,
I read something
yeah.
totally out of the blue here. Sorry. I read
No,
something
it's
a few days ago that I was going to mention if we had done a show tonight. Little science factoids we pick up each week.
Sure.
Somebody is saying that they think now that the Tunguska explosion in Siberia in 1908 was a glancing blow.
Yeah.
That it was like when I heard that, it made me think of the. You might have seen this famous old film clip shot over the Grand Tetons
in the 70s.
Way back in the day, the 1970s, I think. Daylight fireball.
Yep.
That this big thing came in. It never hit the Earth. It flew through the upper atmosphere and kept right on out into space again. That some are saying now they think that's what happened at Tunguska. I guess one reason why we never saw an impact crater there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I looked at that study actually. They wrote a paper which you can access, and the paper discusses the fact that if a meteor came in, they actually theorized, they actually made a computer model to show how the shock wave would be transmitted in the atmosphere if, in fact, we had a glancing blow. So if this meteor came into the Earth's atmosphere, all right, and it went just across the atmosphere, if it penetrated enough atmosphere, it would build up a shock front along the front. And just like when you skip a stone across the water, the energy is going to be distributed in a perfectly radial pattern, and out and down. And that's just what we see with Tunguska. So it's just as good a theory as a comet that was blown to pieces in the upper atmosphere. And the article that Daryl's referencing also says that this particular asteroid, or they think it was 8 to 10 miles across or something like that, or maybe 80 feet across. I can't remember. It was going to be in our radio show tonight, but we're going to talk about it next Sunday.
Okay. Well, sorry to spill the beans.
Not at all. That's fine to talk about. So basically,
but hey, while we're talking about oblique impacts,
yeah,
you were talking about Messier.
Right. I was, wasn't I?
Craters
yeah.
First. Can we see that still?
Sure. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Messier, which is a classic oblique impact on the moon. All right, and I'm going to try and get us just a little bit more light in the subject. Might be too much, but we'll try it. Okay, now we'll zoom in. Oh, wow, see those beautiful, beautiful colors.
We actually do have a few questions coming in now.
Yeah, okay, and there it is right there. That's a glancing impact. This is 1 and 2. And the ray structure goes out so far like this because of the fact that the impactor was at a very shallow angle. And almost all the ejecta went out downrange. And when you say ejecta, it means, for lack of a better term, splash debris. Okay, that's what this is as well. It's not just, the impactor vaporizing, but it's also that. But you can see it now there, Daryl. See?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and what we're talking about, of course, is this right here, this ray structure that we're seeing. Okay, coming out from this crater. That's the splash direction. You can see it kind of just went right out. And the first impact was right here, okay? So you can actually see that first one, okay? Yeah, I see. He's right there. The first one and then the second one. Now, it's possible that these were two impacts, okay? It's something that these might have come in together and struck. But it looks very much like this was a plowed, this one here was a plowed path, and that this was the final resting place. It's really a very interesting spot on the moon, and there's hardly anything. We can't really see much out here, because when the moon is getting this much light on it, it's too bright. Now I haven't. This is in white light, meaning it's the light we see with our eyes. So from like 400 to 600 nanometers in wavelength or so, and so we're actually seeing this the way your eye would see it if you looked at the moon and studied it for a long time and took photos without any kind of filters. This is what you'd see. It's really, really pretty, and I think that when people look at the moon, they think it's just gray, and it's not. Look at these browns. I mean, literally, this whole part of the moon is brown. You see that? And it only goes to some gray here, and darker gray actually here. Really, really stuff. Really, really good stuff in there, So I think that's really interesting.
Mark, I'm all over the place tonight. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
I've been trying to put my finger on why you look different. You cut your mustache off.
You noticed.
Finally, yeah.
And something else.
I was noticing it too, but I thought I knew something was a little bit different, but I thought it was because the image was reversed.
The beard's gone too.
Like, what?
Oh my God.
The goatee is gone. I only have this little piece.
I have cut my beard off twice in my entire adult life, and I grew it right back each time.
Actually, I don't know. Maybe with summer coming or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I was gonna say, bring your camera bigger for one, so we can all see and critique.
Oh, okay. If you dare. Let me just do that.
Skype probably. Okay, guys, what do we think?
Baby face.
I like the clean shaven. I mean, not that, you look bad with facial hair or anything, but I always prefer clean shaven anyway. But
okay.
I like it. What do you guys think?
Well, thank you. I respect that. I respect that opinion. But
younger.
Well, yeah, it's like, ooh, look at Copernicus. That's nice.
That might be it. Yeah, maybe.
That's pretty nice over there. Look at that. Yeah.
And you're getting them Perry White temples too.
Oh yeah, that's actually real. That's gray hair.
Yep.
I don't mind gray hair.
Welcome to the club.
Oh, I don't mind. To me, gray hair is just another phase of life. I have no problem with it.
He only started getting gray since he met me.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, from some years ago.
I'm joking. Saying I'd stress you out.
I am too.
Wait, yeah.
Anahata77, thank you. That's so kind.
Oh, let me get back in chat. See what they're saying.
She said something very nice.
Terrace is fabulous.
Oh, Tara.
Dude said maybe work on the eyebrows next.
Why? What's wrong?
Hannah, very handsome.
Anahata, yeah.
Cypher says not bad.
Well, you guys.
Oh, Ronald thinks you look more like a university type. Carol, wow, just wow. Yeah, Marianne says a baby face. Charles says you look 10 years younger. Great comments, guys. Yeah, I think it's a pretty overwhelmingly positive review. That's wonderful.
Well, you know what? Hey, look at what Ronald says. Will that taser still work on it? Of course it will, Ronald. Don't tempt her. Yeah. And Do, by the way, welcome, Do. It's I'm glad that hanging out with us and doing some astronomy can help you with whatever you're going through, my friend. We all have crap that we have to deal with.
Between this and Bill and P&K and some of the channels we got, no matter what's really going on screen, the community always comes together anyway.
Yes.
And there's just so much love here. I can't say enough good things about this community and how lucky we are that just the right people are finding this community. And the trolls and the fakes, they don't stick around. They fade away, but the ones you see here all the time, these are the good people. These are the people, you know, consider lucky to have in your life and be friends with, because,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of love in this community, and I see it every time I'm here. So,
Well,
yay!
you're right.
Yes, aren't we wonderful?
Yeah,
Yay,
no,
we're bringing love into the world.
That's true. That's true. I mean, we're very.
The community in whole, not us.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But yes, there's a lot of people here that will basically reach out. And a lot of them in the chat here have reached out to me and helped me when I've had some really difficult times. I can never fault anybody for that, and I could never do anything to repay them, because it's just amazing what they do.
I've made closer relationships with some people here in this community, online community, than I've ever made in real life. Like, knowing real people, seeing them every day.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is. I guess the right people are getting together, you know?
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? If you think about it, whenever you see videos online or streams and so forth, you get the inevitable people that give it a thumbs down and stuff like that. And you get, some thumbs down, some thumbs up. I don't know why, but I haven't seen any thumbs down on our streams, and I don't edit them. I don't think. I think that people recognize that, we're not here to bother anybody. We're here to open up these astronomical wonders and let you hang out and check things out. And I think people like that, and it's humbling too, because it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful community. And I would not do this if the community was sadistic or racist I would never do this. I would never choose to expose myself to this and even associate my name with people that are like that, because
that's why in all these streams you see so many mods, because new people come in and commented on all the time. The mods love this community and will protect it, and we do not tolerate trolls. We don't want it around,
Yep,
we don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable that they might run into such and such person, or like, oh, I hope they're not in chat because they treat me poorly. Like, if that ever does happen to anyone, please let me know.
Yeah.
Please let me know. Reach out to me on Facebook, or I'm DannyFan1 on Skype as well. So, if it's anything like that I can do something about, let me know. But I don't see it, I don't hear about it, and not everyone's gonna get along, but we don't discuss, like, we don't have agendas behind what we're doing other than to share the universe.
I wonder if we should just delete Marianne Rob's comment there and penalize her for put her in the box for 3 minutes or whatever. She says
that is right. She's not a mod, actually.
Actually, I was going to do that today and I forgot. That's coming. Yeah, it's coming. Hey, dude, you're all right. You're all right, man. Things are tough all around. I can't get into what I'm facing right now, but it's not easy. But this community is very helpful. This is Plato, by the way. We're looking, if you looked at the moon image down here, there in the upper left corner there of the moon. Plato is 60 miles across, and the other night we did the quick map browser. We can actually circle Plato and go literally down inside Plato and race across the surface and see this wall coming toward us. It's amazing. That's something that if someone wants to know how to do it, I'll be happy to show you. But outside of Plato, we have this mountain right here, Mons Pico, and it sits out here. You can be sure that there was a lot more detail around it, and it was a lot deeper. The whole area around it most likely looked like this. All right, but when the impact that created this basin struck the moon, the Mare Imbrium, it flooded this entire region with these lavas. You'll notice the different colors, right? And these different lavas buried some of the other terrain forever. It's under there, and it's now part of this entire topography now. Just an interesting location. I guess there's no location that's an uninteresting one, right, Daryl?
Oh no, it's all cool. Promontorium Laplace over there on the lower left. It's there.
Yeah, you're very quiet now for some reason, Daryl.
I'm at my usual settings. Sorry.
Let me hear you talk again.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, I'm bringing you up in the volume here.
So what changed?
I can't tell you. But Amanda's still with us, and she's still... You're still going to town
Loud
here.
as ever.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened, but you see it, right, Amanda? Daryl just suddenly went quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here.
No, I know you're here.
Did you move the mic away from your mouth? Did you like put it over your head to cough or something?
I didn't think so.
That's
I'll
okay.
move it a little closer. Then you'll hear every breath I take and belch and sigh and grunt.
That's what meat's for.
Anyway, that's Promontorium Laplace over there to the lower left of Plato.
Over here, you mean? This is Promontorium Laplace here, isn't it?
I think it's
this one.
Which one? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, sorry, my cursor wasn't showing for some reason. Yeah, and what's really interesting is that this particular phase of the moon just passed first quarter, which means just past 1/4 of the way around the Earth in its monthly cycle. It's interesting that at this point you can actually see how the shadow seems to align with Promontorium Laplace here, and it kind of reach down. It's sort of a really interesting shape there. And you can see subtle ridges too on the moon, like right here. This is a very subtle ridge that's visible, that's that you won't see at other times, okay? Depending on how the light is, this is a lower area, this is a higher area, so there'll be a shadow here. But when the light is now over here, this will all be evenly lit, and you won't see that. So this is kind of like the only time you'll see that discontinuity. You can also see areas here, which are areas that are thicker, have a thicker blanket of ejecta than here, okay? You'll see that some of these craters have these white blankets around them, these white, we call those aprons, these white aprons of debris. And usually those are dead straight on shots, the ones that came straight down and then evenly split and sent ejecta in many directions, right? And when people say the craters all look the same depth, they're not actually, because when you go to like the Lunar Highlands down here where Tycho is, and you look at craters down below here, okay, these craters have bottoms that many times, like the bottoms of craters like here and here and Tycho itself, these craters have bottoms that are actually well above the floors of these craters, and sometimes the actual surfaces of these maria, or these so-called seas. So it's very uneven on the moon. And I mentioned this before, when we look at the moon overall, I'm going to take another picture of the moon just to give us a slightly less bright one. I'm not tracking the moon itself tonight, and I am, but obviously it's staying in the view, but I'm not doing what's called lunar tracking. I'm just I'm just doing this. Okay, why is that going so slow? I gotta speed this up. There we go. So I'm not doing lunar tracking. I'm just doing tracking of the stars. And the moon moves at a different rate than the stars. Because if you look at the moon, it's going to be heading this way, okay, in the sky. It's going to be heading toward the east every day. And go ahead.
About 13 degrees.
Absolutely.
Or about its own diameter in about an hour.
That's our Daryl. That's exactly right. See, he puts it in terms you can understand too, and I just like that. That's why Daryl is here.
That question came up at work one day. I was in the mechanic shop at work, and we had the garage door open, and we're out admiring the Pikes Peak over to the west. And one of my coworkers, he goes, "Daryl, I have a question. The other day, the moon was over there, and now it's up there. How come?" And I guess he didn't get it, that the moon is orbiting the Earth, and that's what I told him. And, I told him what I just told you, that it moves its own diameter from west to east in about an hour, and it moves about 13 degrees west to east today.
Yep.
as it's orbiting the Earth over the course of a month.
Yep.
And what'd he say? He went, huh?
And promptly proceeded to forget it.
Oh, probably. He was a biker sort, and I guess he just wasn't used to thinking in such terms or something.
You know what? I tell you one thing. I have really talked to many people about astronomy, and I've never cared for what type of person they were. And I know you don't either, Daryl. I'm not saying that. I'm just pointing out. Everybody wants to know what's going on. Everybody wants to be fascinated, and everyone wants to have a little bit of an understanding of what's happening up there. And it makes them really feel something visceral about their own existence when they learn something like that. When they learn that, like, some of the craters are several hundred craters that are several hundred miles across, okay, these large impacts, okay, and so forth. When they hear that, they're like, wow, could that ever happen to the Earth? And then when you say it has, they're like, what? They almost, it's very interesting to me because people don't know how the evolution of the Earth really took place many times. And to be able to tell people what we think happened, because we weren't there, we can't see for sure. But when we tell people what happened, and as we understand it, then they're like, wow, that is so cool. And they like to be part of that conversation. And I love it. I love watching the what we call the aha moments, where they finally understand and they go, whoa, I get it now. Hey, my job is done here, right? When that happens, perfect.
Oh, yeah.
It. You feel it.
Yep. When I did live programs back in the 90s, public star parties and presentations for the state parks and stuff here, I might have 100 people in the audience, and if I saw one person have that aha moment, if I saw the light bulb go on over their head, I figured that one person was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have instructed a lot of people. I've done lectures.
Yeah.
Been
you can see the light bulb go on over their head.
That's
and,
right.
Their face lights up, and aha.
Yeah. And I remember one of the most satisfying times I ever had was when I was teaching these overnight groups. I would literally be up all night, and I taught them how to take photographs of the stars, and I would take them. I had 25 kids at a night, and I was responsible for all 25 kids, and I had a plan. Each one of those kids was going to be able to have something to take home that they did on their own with help. And so I had, these were all kids from the inner city. Then they get off the bus, they're posturing for attention, they're posturing to like show who's cooler and all that stuff, like any kids. Okay. Then as the night wears on and they start to realize that they're not masters of their own intellect, that they don't have the knowledge that they're hearing, and then they become quiet and they become kind of a little retrospective. I mean, I had some of these kids, one of the biggest troublemakers that was in one of those groups. He basically, at one point, he laid down on this gigantic sundial where I was teaching, and he just started looking up, and he held up his hands. He was making symbols like dark, small and large, and he's saying, "How many other people," he said, "are inside the space between my two fingers?" And I sat down next to him on the sundial, and I said, "Do you know something? That question that you just asked is probably the most important question anyone could ever ask." And he said, like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah. That's what we're all about. That's why we're looking. That's why we're studying the universe. We want to find more of us." And at that time I wasn't, I didn't talk about carbon and all that stuff with this group. They were basically just high school kids. So I hadn't covered that with them at that point. And they were just visiting, and I just met them that day. And at the beginning of the night, they were an unruly group. They were really hard to wrangle. And by the end of the night, they just wouldn't stop following me around. They couldn't get enough. I love it. Yeah, I love when these kids get those. And they all had that aha in one way or another for a certain topic. There was no moon, so we couldn't show them the moon. But I've had some kids take pictures about as good as this with the telescopes we had up there. We'd give them each a telescope, and it would actually, not to keep, and they would put cameras on. We'd teach them how to attach the cameras. After they took the pictures, we would examine the photos. At that time, we actually took them with film, and we actually taught them how to do darkroom development. And I would develop the film with them, and they learned how to do it. And they did a really good job. So really, really cool. And I really enjoyed teaching them. But I'll tell you, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing kids with this grin on their face because they understand something and they're like, wow. And I remember one kid, like I said, one of the tough guys, he goes, "This is really cool. I can't believe this stuff is up there and I never knew it," kind of a thing. He used different words, but and I said, "Well, see, it just takes getting out of those city lights, man." He goes, "Yeah, for real," he goes, and then he goes, "Oh, that's crazy." I go, "Yeah, just don't ever lose that curiosity. You'll be just great. Just don't ever lose that curiosity." So yeah, and anyway, we didn't talk about because I said there was no moon that particular night, but we didn't get a chance to talk about this different coloration and stuff like that, and talk about the lavas and so forth. But I tell you, it was just astonishing. So that's kind of what SkyTour LiveStream is now, I guess, right? We have started to take this to a different level. It's outreach on a global scale.
I was doing a star party one night way down in the San Juan Mountains, southwest Colorado here.
Yeah.
And Saturn was rising over in the east.
Okay.
And I put a 5-inch APO refractor on it, a very high-quality telescope.
Tell everybody what an APO is. They don't know what an APO is. Maybe.
I'm sorry. It's a refractor. It's what people think of when they think telescope. It has a lens in the front and the eyepiece at the back of the tube. It uses lenses, not mirrors, and they tend to be very high-quality telescopes. Apochromatic refractor is what it is, means without color. The best of the refractors to give you true, high-quality, very crisp views, thousands of dollars. Anyway, Saturn rose, and I put it in the eyepiece of the refractor, and there was a line of maybe 50 people waiting to get a look.
Yeah.
And this one girl, she might have been 13, I don't know. Well, she stood in line, she got to the telescope, and she just squealed when she saw it. And she was so overcome that when the next person, she had to give up her view, she ran back to the back of the line. And she must have gone through that line a dozen times at least before she got a belly full of Saturn.
Wow.
It was great. I mean, and she just, it was outside her experience, as you said, and she was just beside herself. It was so cool to see.
See, and you see that. You see that dawning on people's faces, and you're just like, you're astonished, and just as much as they are,
Oh yeah.
I want to point to this crater right here, Menelaus. This crater here is another one that has one of those long, thin rays. Okay, and it was on an area of the moon that was somewhat elevated. It's a part of a highland. Okay, and the impactor struck at kind of an angle, but it also had a backsplash of stuff that came back, but much of it went this way. It's really cool, and you can see a lot of these really strange patterns. Some of those ray patterns that you see, like this, okay, are due to the fact that there are intervening hills blocking the way for the ejecta to come out. So that would actually screen or prevent some of that stuff from going other ways. We have a chunk here, we have some there and there, okay, and then we have some there, and we don't see anything out this way, not much that way. So it could be that Menelaus was the result of a really strange impact in the highlands, which had a lot of the ejecta shielded from being thrown further. But you can't tell from looking down on this right here. You can see shadows here, okay, these mountains. And I know up here, these are the Carpathians, Montes Carpathians up here. I'm not sure if these are the same down here. Daryl, you must know. You must have some idea. I could figure it out, I guess. Apennines, aren't they?
If you say so.
Okay.
There's so much detail on the moon, I can't keep it all straight.
Okay.
That's why I just have about 6 or 8 or 10 favorite objects.
Okay. You mean you don't know every single crater?
No.
Me either.
mention Menelaus there. People are curious.
Yeah.
That is the guy. If you ever saw the movie Troy with what's his face, Menelaus was the husband of Helen of Troy.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Little factoids.
The face that launched 1,000 ships. Was he Agamemnon's brother, the king's brother. Paris came and stole Helen away from Menelaus, and
okay.
They launched the fleet of 1,000 ships to go get Helen and destroy Troy in the process.
Wow.
Jesus,
wow.
Who am I thinking of? The actor, the Troy movie that came out 15 years ago, maybe.
Was that Russell Crowe?
No. Handsome fella, married Brad Pitt. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was having a brain lock there. Anyway, if you ever saw that movie, that's who that crater is named after.
Okay. Alrighty. I that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. I'm trying to locate another one that I think is interesting too to look at. You'll notice that some of these craters have very, very shiny reflections. There's a lot of bright material that the sun catches on the other rim. The sun is on this side. It's over, it's over on the right, and it's aiming this way. So it's actually making, the shadows the way you see them on the inside rims, like this right here. That's the inside rim shadow right there, and then the sun is coming this way, like from there, and that's actually why we're seeing the light that way, which is sort of an elementary thing. I didn't really need to say, I guess. But in looking at this, I'm trying to identify for you and show you some of the really cool objects on here that are still available for us to see. All right, and it was sort of right near Menelaus. I know that this guy here, this is Menelaus. And this particular crater, neat little crater, is about 38 kilometers in diameter. Pretty interesting if you think about it, 38 kilometers. Okay, that's what, 18 miles or so? Maybe, roughly. That's actually quite a big crater, and yet from the distance of the moon, it's lost. We don't even really see it too much. But you get close, and now, you can see it now, Yeah. So there's a lot of craters like that if any one of these impactors had struck the Earth in modern era, like now, it literally could end civilization. So we see them on the moon. We see the craters. We see the scars of these impacts. Really something to really humble you, for sure. So let's see down here. Okay, we have a few other cool craters. Okay, so besides Menelaus over here, we have we're heading into I think this is trying to figure out where we are. This Serenitatis is up here. Mare Serenitatis. It doesn't matter. I'm just loving the pictures. I'm just loving the imagery. It's gorgeous. And I gotta check out the observatory and make sure that our telescope is not getting too close to the observatory edge, because we'll start to see the red. I've got the red light on just for that purpose. Amanda, I don't know if there's questions, but
There were questions. Are you ready?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. And these are coming back from a while. Sorry, guys, but you know.
I know I'm a big mouth.
We
I
get
don't
caught
shut
up in conversation, but I am catching them, and they are here. So,
All right.
our first one is from Tara, and
Okay.
she wants to know: are there fractures in Humboldt crater visible? Are the fractures in Humboldt crater visible?
Fractures in Humboldt crater. Wow, I don't know. And we have to find Humboldt crater, but that's something that we can do, I think. Daryl, do you know where Humboldt is? Offhand?
Not offhand, no.
Do you know anything about the Humboldt crater, Daryl?
Humboldt crater.
Nope. Not me. Like I said, there's too much stuff up there to keep track of all of it.
Yeah.
I just have some favorites. I recognize some of the bigger features, and just again, favorite things. I like the Messier craters. I like Rupi's recta. Plato, Copernicus, Aristarchus is probably my favorite object on the moon, which is the brightest object on the face of the moon.
Actually,
and just under Aristarchus is Grimaldi, which is the darkest object on the moon.
Well, you know what we're going to do, Daryl? We're going to do a long time exposure and see if we can actually see in the unlit portion, see if an Earth-light illuminated Aristarchus might be visible. Aristarchus is right about here. Okay? So we're going to try and see if we can see it. We may not be able to because a lot of the moon is captured right now in light, but you can see the other side here now. Okay, let's go up a little more. All right, let's just take this shot and see if we can actually go through it. So we're gonna do a 2-second shot of a blown out moon, and now let's go see in the dark area here. Okay. Oh, Aristarchus is really kind of near the terminator, isn't it? Right now.
I think so.
So it's probably going to be blended in here. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, but that's pretty cool that we can do that, huh? And anything we see here, guys, everything we see in here, all this light that you see here is not from the sun reflecting off other parts of the moon. This is outside the sun's purview, and we don't have atmosphere on the moon, so we can't see light being transmitted through an atmosphere like haze. Okay, what we're seeing here is light from the Earth itself illuminating this part of the moon. It's called Earth shine. It's really kind of cool, and you can see Earth shine with your eye. When you're looking at a young moon, you can see the other side of the moon being illuminated by the Earth. Yep. By the way, this shot right here, this little picture I took, that kind of resembles the very first photo I ever took of the moon. It was with a camera that I made, and what I did was I made a pinhole camera. And I basically had a pinhole in a piece of, what was it? A manila folder. And I put a pinhole and built a case around the film canister, basically. And it was like a little Instamatic camera. And then when I developed the film, they all looked like this. I was like, oh, man. Because I had to do it manually. I couldn't do it short enough. Yeah, but I was really, really excited to see this tangled curvature and stuff in here. I knew that, wow, it's like, wow, look at that. Those must be where the craters are, I thought. Little kid. Who would have guessed that little kid would actually go on and become an astronomer and do things that don't make any money? Because astronomers don't do it for money, I can tell you that. We do it to learn how the universe works. Yep. So yeah. So now.
We have more questions.
Yeah, please.
Okay. And yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we can look into Humboldt craters.
Looking as we speak.
Fractures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right on. Well, duh. Of course you are. Right on. Okay. Well, we'll work on that. Even if we can't see it, we can at least try to learn about it. Ronald wants to know, what are the reasons for the different lava temperatures?
You mean the colors? The lava temperatures can be slightly different depending on there's different melting points for different elements in the lavas, but the colors you're looking at are based on these different materials, and so rhyolite will look different from a basalt, and it'll look different from some of the other types of lavas you'll get. So on the moon, we have quite a rich assortment, the same as on Earth. But on the moon, what we don't have is erosion. So we see a record that's billions of years old when we look at the moon, which is kind of an amazing thing, So the colors difference is based on the composition of the specific lavas. Okay, so when we take a photo and look at it, okay, the moon's compositional colors will depend on what is in that lava. Okay, so this lava looks like this. This lava is this color. Again, you'll notice there's some really dark lavas, and then there is really light lavas, and it has to do with the chemical composition. Some of them actually look a different weird color. Like here, this crater has an apron around it, and this apron makes it kind of almost look blue. Yet we're looking at it without looking through a filter. We haven't looked through a filter once tonight so far. We're just looking at the moon as the camera sees it, and I haven't enhanced the colors at all. This is really what it looks like.
I think Daryl may have found something on our first question.
Humboldt crater is over near the eastern limb of the moon. It's probably pretty much in direct sunlight right now, and I don't know if we'd see much if we were to try to look for it. I still can't tell you exactly where it is on the face of the moon, except it's over on what I guess would be the far left side, right side.
Well, the far right is the western side.
Okay, and that always throws me too. Then it's in the dark.
Okay, so this is the eastern side.
Yep. So it's not come out in the sunlight yet.
Okay.
I have a question on that right there. Hold on a second.
I'm not moving.
What do you mean sides? How can you have a side of a 360 moving ball?
Well, okay,
Won't west keep changing? Like you can't say a certain crater is west because in a 24-hour period won't that have changed?
Well, west as far as when you look at the moon. Okay, if you look at the moon, think of this as the center line of the moon going from the top to the bottom, right? And half of it you can't see, right? Just a little under half. Okay. Now, this side is toward the west because the moon is going to arc over and set in the west.
Because it's tightly locked.
That's correct. And then on this left side, very good, Amanda. Very good. That was
I realize I do that all the time.
Excellent observation.
Something throws me so badly that I question it on the spot, and then I think through a minute later, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's tightly locked, of course.
You were far from an idiot. You figured it out. I didn't have to. And so.
That's always thrown me about the moon, though, the eastern limb versus the western limb, and I'm not the only one that bugs. Yeah, that is the western side of the sky where we see the...
Right.
Yeah, but if that was the Earth's globe we were looking at, we would say that is the eastern side of the globe.
Because we're looking in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right. That's right. But hey, you know what? Like I said, this what we're looking at is the satellite of the Earth here. This is really a fascinating little moon that we have because it's got so many varied and interesting places to look at. You know, I wish that we and only a spacecraft orbiting it can do it. But I wish we could look at the small craters left by impacts created by people. When we crashed different spacecraft on the moon, we had the Ranger program early in the 60s, I believe. Early 60s. And Ranger 1 through 9, I think. And it was an impact spaceship. It would actually go and take pictures all the way down and send them back and send them back and send them back. Crash. It just crashed into the moon. They were never meant to be soft landers. They were meant to just crash into the moon. And then the surveyors were the soft landers. And on one of the Apollo missions, I think it was it Apollo 12? That they actually went and touched the surveyor that had landed. They landed near the surveyor spacecraft that had landed. And they went over and there's photos of the astronaut touching surveyor that was launched several years earlier and landed on the moon. And now we were there looking at it. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Really neat stuff. You know, really neat stuff. It's really nice. And it's just a beautiful night, like, for the moon tonight. So I guess that's why I'm sticking around on it. And it's also a perfect phase for the moon for exploration. It's not too bright. It's not washed out. We have plenty of contrast over here. And Lake Copernicus over here, we have this beautiful contrast. The central peak structure of Copernicus is really complex, and you can see it very clearly here. You can also see the ray structure. Copernicus has a really interesting wispy ray structure that's not like some of the other craters. When we look at some of the other craters, there's still one that's still in the dark here, but there's one here that has this beautiful ray structure as well. And, you know, that's just a fascinating crater to look at, as they all are, you know.
I've mentioned that about Copernicus before. If you look at Copernicus, then say you look at Tycho, how different the ray structures are.
Yeah.
To me, Copernicus always looks like somebody dropped a big rock in a mud hole.
Right, like a splat.
And it went splat, you know. Well, when you look at Tycho there, you can see those big, beautiful rays, you know, spraying in narrow lines halfway across the face of the moon.
Yeah, that's these rays go out like, you know, almost 1,000 miles. So what that tells you is the impact had a lot of energy, very high energy, and it was probably a direct impact. You know, an impact that came more or less straight down onto the moon at that point, because the ray structure is also on this side as well. You know. Amanda, more questions?
Yeah, but I'm sorry I interrupted. That statement caught me off guard. So, did we know anything more about Humboldt, or?
Well, yes, it's over here in the dark. We can't see it yet.
Yeah. No, I meant about the fractures. No, I feel like I cut him off and he had more to say, and I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry. It is in the dark, so we can't see it. Are they visible from Earth? I don't know. If you look at that image, though, that is a lunar and LRO image of the crater, and that is an absolutely gorgeous shot. And it's looking straight down in that view instead of in a oblique view like what we would see, because it's so near the eastern limb of the moon. That yeah, you can certainly see the cracks in the crater that who was that, Tara asked about?
Yes, let's go see if we can bring up this image that you sent out for folks. Let's go see if we can do it. Let me do it like here, maybe.
It's us. There you go.
Okay,
Right.
Which one is this we're looking at?
This is Humboldt. This is the Humboldt cracks.
I thought you said you couldn't see it.
We can. But
Well, no, okay, not us, but it can be seen sometimes.
Yeah, Wikipedia. Yes, we have to use Wikipedia to see this one. Actually.
And this is a Lunar Reconnaissance Observatory image.
Yeah, Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. Yeah, it is beautiful.
So,
Orbiter, excuse me.
It's all right.
So, okay, so is it that they have a stronger telescope, and that's why they can see it and we can't?
No, because it's closer and it's in orbit, and it flew right over the crater.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of detail in here. Now you ask, well, what are these? A lot of these are lava tubes, okay, and fissures created, from the lava that cooled on the surface. And many of these are that you'll see there's little pits, okay, and you'll notice there's rows of these pits. That's characteristic of lava tubes that are collapsing. The roofs are collapsing along the lava tube, and eventually they'll make these little rills. Now, these could be little tiny, what look like valleys when you went to them. As a kid, I thought these were just raised structures on the moon, but in fact, we know now that they're not. Okay, they're actually, some of these are depressions. There are raised rills and there are raised areas on the moon, but some are actually, deep valley type constructions. Interesting too, this crater over here. Look at the shape of that. It almost looks like an artifact created by Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter or something. I can't tell.
Looks almost like a crater in a crater.
It does, a perfect one. And also, these craters here, these are what are called simple craters. Now, I guess any crater that has like a mile or two diameter, that's pretty complex to me. But this guy right here, okay, this is a simple crater. It's just a bowl, like a bowl-shaped crater, and many times they'll have debris on the bottom that sifts down from the edges, and that kind of makes it like a flat bottom, But depending on the size of the crater, this impactor was a lot bigger than this impactor, which was massively bigger than this impactor down here. So they're all various sizes. But Tara, thank you for that question. That was a really great question. Sorry we can't look at it directly tonight, but we'll do our best, and we'll bring it back. We'll come back and show you this when we're done. That's to say, when the moon actually has a favorable position to show us. Humboldt. All right, and now I'm just going to drag the moon back here. Let me get out of there, get back into my remote view. There we go.
Thank you for sharing that, Mark. That is a cool picture.
Yeah, no, well, thank you for finding it, Daryl.
No worries.
Go ahead, Amanda, if you got more. She's on mute.
I am on mute. Our good friend Du wants to know, is there helium-3 on the moon?
Well, yes, as many people know, helium-3 is a constituent that could be used in future fusion reactors. And there is helium-3. It's obviously bound up in the rock strata here and on the regolith of the moon, but it's just the regolith is soil. But helium-3 is a product that on Earth it would not last as long as it does on the moon. So we actually have a ready supply of these fusion products, these fusion fuels. Helium-3, if you start with helium-3, you actually start with an isotope that is made during the fusion process, because you have hydrogen slammed together to make deuterium. Okay, deuterium and hydrogen slammed together to make this helium-3. Now you have the helium-3. But those first two processes can be avoided if you start with helium-3. So that kind of gives you a shortcut into the fusion reaction process. And if you got a fusion reactor and you throw in helium-3, well, now you can only just have to make helium-4 with it with another hydrogen. So you might actually be able to stimulate a fusion reactor to work just by doing that. I think that's a pretty cool way to shortcut having to do fusion. You follow? So helium-3 is already along the chain of progress to get to these final fusion products that we want to create in a fusion reactor. So good question.
Okay, and we have one more from Marianne. It's a two-part question, but I have a third to throw in. I don't know if that's where she's going, but
Okay.
That's where my mind went.
All right.
She wants to know, is every crater named? Did the meteor that hit the moon last year that you caught live leave a crater that was captured? And my question is, if so, is that one named? I don't know if that's where she was going, but that's obviously my next question. So,
Yeah.
what do we know?
As Daryl pointed out earlier, Marianne, every crater that you can see has a name. And many of the craters you can't see have names. The IAU and the people that do research on the craters will name them, and sometimes the IAU will say, okay, you can name it that. And they allow them to name craters. It's somewhat rare. But it is true that almost everything you see on the moon has a name. Even the large tracts of gray and light brown and stuff like that are all named. The moon, if you saw all the names in one photo for what's on the moon, you wouldn't even see the moon. It's all words. It's all letters. So it's pretty cool.
When they started naming objects on the moon, well, it was after Galileo, I guess.
Yeah.
And they tended to name things after historical or mythological figures, like we looked at Menelaus earlier.
Yes.
And Plato, the philosopher, and
Yep.
Copernicus, the astronomer.
Yep.
And later on, well, getting into the age of reason, I guess you would say, they started naming other lunar features discovered after famous scientists from what we would call scientists nowadays. They would have called them natural philosophers, I suppose, or something of the sort back then. They started naming them after scientific figures. There is even a crater named Picard on the moon, believe
Yes,
it or
there
not.
is.
Yep, and it's not named after Jean-Luc
No.
Picard. It's
Auguste.
named after a French scientist from a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Star Trek ever made that connection or not. If they ever said that, well, the first Picard was an ancestor of Jean-Luc Picard.
I think that the way they spelled it was different. I think Picard, did he spell Piccard?
I
real
thought
one?
they were both Picard. I could be wrong, though.
Okay, because there's a Picard that in the submarine community, Auguste Picard, and I believe that was Piccard.
Okay, I guess I'm going to have to go look at another thing.
There you go. I'm seeing that the moon has got a little bit of a fuzzy look to it. It looks to me as if we might have a little bit of the dome starting to interfere. No worries. So, let's go check out where the moon is in the sky right now. Let's bring up our handy...
Picard crater.
Yeah.
Is a lunar impact crater, lies in Mercurium. Crater is named for 17th century French astronomer and geodesist Jean Picard.
Okay.
It is the biggest non-flooded crater of this mare, being slightly larger than Pierce to the northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Blah blah. Anyway, they do spell
Blah,
it
blah.
Picard.
Okay. Very good. Okay, there's you can see the moon. If we get rid of these lines and bring in the altazimuth lines, you can see the moon is still 40 degrees above the horizon here. This is actually my actual landscape that you see. So there's the dome. Hey, look at that. I actually did a 360 degree panorama that I could put in here into our planetarium to show you what it looks like here. And it's very nice. And we have our constellation lines here. And boy, oh boy, M13 on this beautiful night is almost right overhead. What do you say we start looking at some clusters now? What do you say, huh?
Sure.
Okay, we have a few that we can look at still. I think that... I wonder... maybe we can see M3 from our current configuration. Let's go see. All right. First of all, we're gonna watch. You'll see the moon just zip away here. It's gone. And you'll see the telescope system will move. And it's going to go to a star that's going to use as a guide. And as long as the dome's not in the way, I probably should have checked that. Yeah, that's why we're going to get rid of this dome. We're going to actually go to a shed for this too. I don't see a way around it. Yeah, well, should be in there. Oh, but you know what? I know why I can't see it because I haven't brought the exposure up. Yeah, okay, that's better.
I have a question for you guys.
Yes, go right ahead there.
We're all in there talking about how craters are named and things like that, and I always get this a little wrong, but I thought that most of the moons of Uranus are named after Shakespeare characters.
Oh yeah, you're right. You talked about Oberon.
What is it, Uranus? And is it the moons?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
There was
Oberon.
something else I heard, but I can't remember the details to it. But there are it might be the moon actually, named after like classical book characters. Does that sound familiar to either of you?
Yeah, actually.
Not offhand.
I'm sure I read that somewhere, and I can't remember. Because I always linked Uranus's moons to Shakespeare, but it was something else. It might have been craters on the moon. I don't know why I'm thinking Mercury. And I can't remember any examples, but they were all like characters from like classical books from like 100 years ago and stuff.
Wow.
Like Dickens and I don't know, maybe Hemingway. Like just like classic, what we might consider classic authors. I don't know, but I just wanted to run it by you before I started searching for it on my own.
Okay. I actually, I think you should let us know what you find, because
I will. I'll
I'd
do
be
that right now.
interested in knowing that. This
Yeah,
is.
Oh wait.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, they have diversified enough that different objects or different classes of objects tend to get certain sorts of names, like they're down into obscure Polynesian names and stuff like that for some classes of objects. I forget. But yeah, like Uranus, named after Shakespearean characters. Some of them, at least, may be, I want to say, from a Midsummer Night's Dream. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, they are. They are for sure.
And you mentioned
Fairies,
Mercury,
usually fairies and airy kind of characters from Shakespeare.
And they've diversified across the different planets and all sorts of different classes of objects in space. That they tend to give certain sorts of names to certain types of things. You know, some of the names they pick nowadays for like some of the trans-Neptunian objects or whatever, Kuiper objects, Sedna, and some of the other names, Oumuamua for that interstellar interloper we had last year.
Right.
I want to say that's some sort of a Polynesian name. You know, they're trying to spread it around so everybody's got something in the game for it.
Oumuamua was Hawaiian.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Messenger from afar. Oumuamua.
Not to be confused with the Kamehameha.
That's right. Or the King Kamehameha. The Kamehameha was actually.
Oh, I was referring to Dragon Ball Z, but yeah, it was based off of the King.
Okay, I was referring to the submarine called the USS Kamehameha, and of course King Kamehameha.
Yes, yeah, I figured the King is the original kind of inspiration.
Yep.
Okay, we're caught up in the questions from chat so far.
Okay.
I'm gonna kind of Google, but I'll still keep an eye on chat, so keep the questions coming.
Alrighty, good job. Thank you so much, Amanda. This is Messier 3 we're looking at right here. It's a globular cluster, and we're going to go back and see if we can look at the data for it to kind of get a better feel for where it is. You can actually see it right here. It's pretty bright. All right, and Messier 3, M3 its distance is, let me. It looks like it says 33,000. 34,000 light years. So it's pretty distant on the other side of the galactic disk, so to speak. And that's actually a beautiful globular cluster. We'll take another photo of it anyway. And we'll do it. Let's do a 25 seconds. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I did not go after and take care of my my guiding system. I have to do that first. So we're gonna go down, enter, and we're gonna go 02. I'm just messing with the computer here. Go down, enter 01. And there we go. So I should have now been able to set it up for doing these longer exposures. I came out, it was the other night when I actually started up the telescope, and I came out and just photographed the Ring Nebula all night. That's all I did. And I have yet to stack it and so forth, but I'm going to do that as well. So we'll see what we get. And this is going to be 25 seconds, so if there was any slop in the guiding, we would see it. And then, and look at that, it looks beautiful. It really looks nice. And again, we're not looking at it through any filters. It's just really, really pretty. All right. Very pleased. Looks beautiful. Okay, that is, as I said, that is Messier 3 for all to see when you're out here with me. Having fun, you see.
Good night, Marianne.
Where does she think she's going? Oh, what a wimp.
Wherever she wants, I bet. She's the one with the can of mace.
What a wimp. Come on, Marianne. What do you think you're doing? You're right, Tara. It is very pretty and sparkling. It's a beautiful, sparkling cluster. I always liken these. I call them exploding snowballs of stars, which kind of are weird. Mark Myers, that's an excellent question. Within a cluster like this, you can't help but wonder, are there ever collisions? It's resolving such a question requires an examination of something called the N, as in November, N-body problem. And N is just a random, can be any number from, 3 to a million. And in this case, it's probably approximately 50,000 stars. And the complex pathing that you have to try and figure out to see where the stars are going to go. You would think in a cluster like this that the stars would have gone around each other and whipped each other away from each other, a long, long time ago. But they do somehow, and some of that may have happened, but they do somehow manage to reach some level of stability such that as chaotic as it can be, there is some stability in there somehow. Because otherwise these clusters probably couldn't exist. They're among the oldest things in the universe. So clearly they're here and their structure's been maintained for a long time. And they're not just sitting there. You are absolutely right, Mark. They do get pulled toward each other, and they are gravitationally bound to each other. So maybe some of these stars are actually stars that are maybe like these stars right here. Maybe some of these stars are some that are on their way out of the cluster. Like these guys right here. These stars right here might be actually on their way out. They might be heading out, but we don't know that because we're not privy to millions of years worth of data on this, So we don't know. But when you look at when you look at something like this, it is absolutely right to think, and very possibly correct to think, that maybe these stars are in such orbits that they're being ejected from this cluster, or maybe they're being pulled into the cluster. Now we can figure that out, because when we look at these stars individually, we can actually find something called the proper motions, and these are the actual motions these stars take as they move through space. And proper motions of stars will tell us which way they're going. Like, are these stars heading this way? Okay, are these stars going that way? Are these kind of in an orbit going this way? All right, it's all possible, And with a cluster like this, you got to think that there's something like that going on, because there's so many stars. So it's a very good question, Mark Myers, and I wish I could answer that in more completely for you, but it's a very complex problem. And as far as a collision, believe it or not, I don't think so. Now maybe the stars can get into a tight orbit, okay, but I don't know that they'll actually collide, because as tight as that cluster is out there, these stars are actually pretty far apart from each other in reality. And next time we do Space Engine, we'll fly through a globular cluster, and we go right through the center, and you'll notice that the stars are all there's like a big cluster of stars, and as we get closer, they spread out, and then you see a lot of space through them. And then the next thing you know, you're seeing less stars. You're moving out of the cluster. So that gives you a good idea for how it actually looks in there. Keep in mind, stars are only ever points of light. And these light points that we're seeing are many, many times bigger than the actual spot of light the star actually takes in the sky. Okay? And that would make it more clear as to whether anything would ever collide. And you'd see that the collisions are actually quite rare. So I hope
throw in my 2 cents.
Yeah, please.
You said earlier, that globular clusters are some of the oldest things in the universe. You're talking on the order of maybe 12 billion years old, something of the sort. That they have survived so long would seem to say to me that they must be pretty stable.
Yeah.
That they haven't disintegrated or flung themselves apart.
Yep. And I said, as you say, and I think you're right. These clusters have to have some level of stability to be around that long. I mean, when you look at these stars, okay, when we do a spectrum of a star, let's say we're trying to look right at this star right here, okay? If we look at that little tiny star right there, if we look at it, we're going to notice, if it's in the cluster, we're going to see that this little guy is not going to have a lot of elements in its spectrum that consist of more than hydrogen and helium, probably. Maybe there might be carbon or some neon, okay, but it's most likely going to just be hydrogen or helium. And astronomers love to confuse people, I'm sorry. But we basically talk about those, anything other than hydrogen and helium, we call metals. We know they're not platinum and tin, okay, we know. Because carbon is not a metal. But we say that because relative to the abundances of the elements from the inherent formation of the star, anything formed in the nuclear fire, okay, is going to be heavier, and we'll call those metals. Oh, Kyle Lynch is here. Hey, Kyle, how you doing? So yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things that globular clusters can teach us, and I may have to move the dome for this next one, but we're going to try it. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So I found a little bit. I found more information, like more interesting information that I wasn't looking for than the actual accurate list I thought I saw, but I found some good information.
Okay.
I was thinking, I thought maybe it was the moon, but for some reason I was thinking Mercury.
Okay.
And I guess I don't know on this one if they let the people. I'm getting confused now. Hold on. I think for Charon, for the moon of Pluto, Charon,
yeah.
they let they let the IAU
Yes.
let the people decide, and the only stipulation was it had to be an artist, composer, or writer who is famous for more than 50 years and had been dead for more than 3. So they named them after composers, writers, and artists.
Okay.
And I have a full list of all the names, but I thought there was like a specific, like, you know, some of the popular authors were all in one category and all the famous composers were in one, and I'm not finding a breakdown for that. I'm sure there is,
All right.
but I haven't found it yet. But I found a link where Pluto and Sharon were, after they let the people name them, there were a whole bunch of characters from Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, and Lord of the Rings. So there's a list of, and that one is broken down, and I threw that link in chat. So if you guys are interested in that, check it out. It's good stuff
Thank you
in there.
very much, Amanda.
But it was the creators of Mercury that had like the composers and the famous books. I'm sure of it. It might have been the same thing for Sharon as well. Same stipulation, but let the people do it.
Okay.
But so I tried. I found good stuff, but not exactly what I was looking for. But
Oh, that's okay.
then I wasn't hearing any of the show, so I came back. It's like,
Okay. Well,
That's
thank
all.
you very much for that. Thank you for that research.
I tried.
Yeah.
I can't do it when something else is going on though. I miss out on one or the other, and I don't want to miss questions and information.
Yeah, fair enough. But boy, you did a nice job for everybody. Thank you.
But now that you guys are aware, if you're interested, you can go search that out yourself and be pleasantly surprised. I
Okay.
hope.
And I'm sure that there are people that will enjoy that. You know, I do have to just do one quick refresh here. The other thing is that I need to move the dome so I can see this next thing, which is the Great Cluster in Hercules. And it's going to be pretty high, so it's actually pretty nice. I want to just welcome everybody here that I haven't talked to yet. I apologize if I missed you. My mind has been somewhat preoccupied, but I will definitely acknowledge you and make sure that you know that I care that you took the time to come watch us. I am now going to go move the dome. Can you and Daryl take everybody for a figurative ride around the heavens while I do that?
Daryl can, and I'll just sit shotgun and enjoy the view.
Sure, you can hang out and enjoy it. All right.
All right.
I will be right back.
Okay. Take the wheel, Daryl. I can't remember what's it called. Take the
Daryl will have the tiller.
Take the con. Thank you. Take the con. I knew it was a short 3-letter word. I couldn't remember. Take the con. Yeah, the controllers. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Amanda. Sharon. Okay. I was under the impression that its name, like Pluto, refers to the underworld, okay, or something of the sort.
Yeah.
What is Sharon named after?
Oh my God, and I should know this too. As you were saying, as I was thinking, I've heard this before. I honestly, I have an instinct, but it's conflicting with other information I know to be true. I want to say it was like a hellhound, like a dog or something, but it's not Cerebus.
Okay, and that was the first thing I thought.
Yeah, but wasn't it like a protector of Hades?
Find out.
Oh, you don't know?
I forgot.
I thought you were quizzing me. Oh, okay. Oh, no one. Does anyone in chat know offhand? Well, yeah, I'll look. What was... Let's see who can type faster. The Ferryman. That was the name of the Ferryman. Yes.
Very good. Okay, yeah.
That's what I was thinking, because like how symbolic that you have to go to Charon before you get to Pluto. It's on the outside. It's the moon, you know, like, and that's why I was thinking it's not Cerebus, obviously, because it's Charon. You know, it's not Cerebus, but I was thinking like a protector or like a hellhound is my first image. Not a three-headed one, just a hellhound.
Right.
And yeah, it seemed like it was like a gatekeeper, something, and I couldn't place it. That's what it was. There you go. Now that I find very interesting. Do you guys in chat like that too? I love that kind of stuff.
And I could be wrong here, but I want to say when people would lay coins on the eyes of the dead,
That was the payment for the
that
fairy.
was a payment to the ferryman.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I feel bad I couldn't recall the story right offhand because that's a great story. Hopefully we'll remember from now on.
Mm-hmm.
That will not be on the test.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love Greek mythology, and I like that, like, I don't know, books from characters from books and stuff. I wish I could remember them. I want to say it was like Dickens. I want to say maybe like Hemingway, but now I'm confusing myself. Did he write books, or was he more poetry, or both?
Hemingway, he wrote books.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason I wasn't sure if it was like actual like books, like, you know, novels, stories. I was thinking maybe like poems or possibly like playwrights or something. Yeah. But I think like all those categories are kind of covered, and there would be the craters of Mercury. And for some reason I want to say there's got to be some craters on the moon named after people like that too. There must be. But then I started reading about Charon, and by the time I went to start talking, I'm like, wait, I've just confused everything. And I had like 3 articles up that I was kind of trying to read from while, like, I was trying to talk while I was finding the right space in the article, you know?
Mm-hmm. I want to address a question Ronald asked.
Sure.
Are there any planets in the clusters, Ronald? You said, I assume you mean in the globular clusters, like M3 we looked at, and we're going to look at M13 next. As Mark mentioned, these are some of the oldest stars in the universe. They're early first generation stars, and they are metal poor stars, so to speak. That is, they're mostly just hydrogen and helium. Therefore, there's not much material there to make planets out of. Does that make sense? So globular clusters, I would assume, would be poor in planets, relatively speaking, if they had any at all. Mark is back. Would you agree with that, Mark?
I would actually, and I'd be interested and very curious actually to see any studies that indicated whether globulars had any propensity to have planets. I don't expect that they would, but you know.
I have a question, but I may have been a little confused on the explanation.
Okay.
Okay. There's too much like violent activity going on in a cluster for a planet to survive. Yes. I think.
No. Wait, hold on. It's not violent activity per se, as much as say lack of materials to make a planet from. For instance, if you got that many stars in a cluster, when they're young, those stars are going to have very, very powerful stellar winds, and they might clean the cluster right out of material, from which a planet could be made, if there's any in there to begin with. Now, with a cluster that's a globular cluster, these stars were formed very early on when really all there was hydrogen and some helium and a few other trace elements. So when they started to do their nuclear fusion, when their fires began, they were making elements. They're making elements in their cores, but those elements don't get out, okay, until after the star dies. Well, many of those stars are still around, so we don't have the benefit of any of the materials that were made in their cores at this point. We only see what's on their outer atmospheres. It shows us what they formed with, okay, because those elements on the outer atmospheres aren't in the core. So they didn't form in the core. The stuff that's in the core is what formed in the core. But the stuff in the core doesn't make its way to the outer envelope of the star. And so what we see in the outer envelope is what it was made with. And we see a dearth of, that is to say, none of the other stuff in the periodic table that make up the periodic table and the other elements, the heavier elements. And I'll take this picture here of Messier 13, M13.
I have so many follow-up questions to that, but I think you'll be disappointed with how little I've retained over all this time.
Oh, come on. No, don't say
I'm trying to follow something. I'm trying to follow it through, but I'm scared that I'm going to get it wrong by the end. Okay.
The only way you will
theorize with me
find
for a
out
second to
is
see
if you
how far
ask.
off I am.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Now, what if in a globular cluster,
Yeah.
a star dies? Now, now is this true for all stars, or I guess it depends on the size of the star? Like, when our sun goes, it goes red giant, then white dwarf. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, but that's not true for all stars when they die.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
More massive.
That's where. Okay, that's where I'm. Okay, I'll just leave it at that then.
Well, no, the more.
no.
You're on the right track, Amanda.
Amanda,
Go ahead.
We've talked about the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram before, which show great big hot blue stars all the way down to the dimmest red stars.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look dead in the middle of the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, they show one line that is one solar mass. Okay, that is, it's stars like the sun.
Okay.
God, I'm losing my train of thought here. If you get out at the far ends, well, down at the far end, just like that OBA FGKM, you're going to have the little M stars, the red dwarfs, down at one end, and then and they're very small, very low mass. Then you get up in the very middle of the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, and you get like one solar mass stars, just like our sun. And they tend to produce white dwarfs. Ultimately, they'll go from red giant to white dwarf. And sometimes they put off planetary nebulas, I guess. Then if you get up...
I swear to God, that's where I was going, was planetary nebulas.
Good, okay.
That's good. So
and then when
you don't trust
you get
yourself.
up at the top end of the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, you've got the great big giant stars. It's a logarithmic scale. That is, each jump of a line varies by a power of 10. Not one. Up at the top end, you've got the blue supergiants, which are the hottest, biggest stars and have the shortest lifetimes, and they're the ones that go supernova.
And they could be 10, 20 times the mass of the sun, Amanda. So those big stars. And those are stars that are still on what is called the main sequence, which is what Daryl's alluding to. Those are stars that are actually fusing hydrogen into helium in their cores predominantly. But when a star gets more massive, there's a different process that they actually use to do fusion at a certain point. But we're not even have to go into. We don't have to go into that. Just understand that the farther to the left of the diagram you go, the stars are bigger and more massive than the sun, but they're still doing hydrogen into helium in their cores, which is what normal stars do. And that's that line that snakes along in that Hertzsprung-Russell diagram is. It's that line of normalcy, that line where stars are living their lives like we know stars live their lives, where they're stable, and that's when they're fusing hydrogen into helium. And that line Daryl was talking about, that one solar mass, that line is in there because that corresponds to our sun, and it shows where our sun is in there, and that's where it is. It's at a G, at the location of the G stars, OBAFG, as you always like to say. Okay, and then above that and to the left, you can have stars that are much more massive than the sun, and to the right, stars that are less massive than the sun. So it's it's also a diagram that illustrates masses as well as brightness, temperatures, and colors. It's a very useful diagram that Edgenar Hertzsprung and Henry Norris Russell came up with when they came up with this diagram. It really illustrates stellar evolution very well. And that's just the main line. Then you have these things called turnoff points. That's where the hydrogen fuel is used up in the star. And, like a star like these guys here, right? If a star like this begins to use up its hydrogen fuel, well, what's it going to do? It's going to end up bloating into a red giant. All right, and then it'll probably go into a white dwarf eventually, and it might leave a planetary nebula behind. But we don't really see any of those here, do we? and that's because these stars are still in their prime of their lives at the moment. They're old, but they actually can. They're probably going to be coming to an end eventually, and some relatives that come at long after us will see likely see planetary nebulae in globular clusters. And then a lot of these will be like that.
Hey, look, M13.
Yeah.
No, that was good information, both of you, and that made a lot more sense because I don't know. I guess there's just too many variables, to actually have a definitive answer to what I was thinking anyway. So.
Well, no,
a global cluster could a global cluster have several different types of stars in it?
Okay, therein lies the rub. A cluster of stars is a cluster of stars because they're all formed around the same time. Okay, in the same region of space. That means from the similar material, similar chemical compositions. Only if there was some kind of fluke and non-homogeneous cloud that they were in would the stars actually have a difference in chemical content and composition. Typically, take the Pleiades. They're all hot blue B stars. There's no F stars in there, no G stars sprinkled in. These are all B stars because that was the predominant material available, and they all were able to be formed at the same time from the same pool of material. So you get the same type of star. And most clusters have the very same types of stars in them. They don't see O stars mixed with F, G's, and M's. You know what I mean? Now,
okay, so
they can't. Wait, hold on. There's one more little thing, though. Over time, as they migrate away from their clusters, then they could ramble on into different regions of the galaxy where they will share and be near other stars of different types. For example, the sun is a G2 star. So from 0 to 9 in the G scale, we're a G2, and it is thought that maybe the sun was part of the cluster that was formed when the Big Dipper was formed. Those stars, they're all relatively close, and there's problems with the directions of motion for the sun versus those stars, but it was thought that maybe we were part of the cluster that formed the Big Dipper. So from some distant location, we're somebody else's Messier-like number, and all the stars in the Big Dipper might be included with our little sun as this visual object in the night sky that is relatively unimpressive, compared to something like this on the screen that we see right here, So it's possible, but the universe, like I said, most of the stars in the clusters are all going to end up being the same exact type of star to begin with.
Okay, but now you said all the stars in Pleiades are B. I think you said B.
Mm-hmm.
But not all clusters are B stars.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
It depends on the raw materials available to the cluster was made from the stars in the cluster were made from. If those raw materials were there, then yes. And if you're making an O star, you're really going to be making it from essentially some very, very large nebula with lots of gas, lots of hydrogen, and once a gravitational center begins to form, a knot of gas or dust, then that becomes massive enough that it starts attracting more stuff, and it grows and grows and grows and grows. And when the temperature in the center reaches that magic point where fusion can begin, then the star will wink on. But it could be that the stuff grows so fast, and because it may collapse so fast, and become so massive, that's where we can get an O star born, where it's actually 20 times the mass of the sun. And it sort of, there's no human way to literally notate in your mind what 20 solar masses looks like versus 6, you know, because one solar mass is beyond the comprehension of most people, you know. Jupiter's the most massive planet in our solar system, and when I say it has to have been 80 times bigger for it to be the smallest type of star. That doesn't really mean anything. You hear the words, you go, wow, that's pretty big, I guess it has to be. But you don't really feel what that means.
A good video for that from the 70s, actually, The Power of 10. We've spoken about that before, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
It shows,
that's right.
It goes by the tower. It zooms out by the power of 10 every 10 seconds.
I taught a class like that. I taught that very class.
It's insane how quickly these numbers are just mind-boggling, and and then they zoom back in. I don't find that as interesting, but
well,
I'm more interested in the universe than humans.
Yeah, I understand, but you know what? We are the dominant life form on the planet. If you don't count insects,
I shouldn't say that. Actually, I love people.
Well, of course you do. You know, but so the point being, that when we look at and we think about the powers of 10, yes, it's very important, and that's why I did my toilet paper history of the Earth, because using a silly roll of toilet paper, I put, as you know, most of you know, I put the entire history of the Earth on a roll of toilet paper, and then I unroll it, and it's got markings on it that talk about everything that happened, you know. And of course, I have no life, so that's why I do these things, and time to do these things. But the truth is that when I do these talks, and I've done that one all over the world, this stupid roll of toilet paper, and people see the toilet paper come out and they think, what is this? What have I got myself into here? And then they start to see what we do, and we unroll this thing. It's around 117 feet long. I've performed it and done this for audiences of over 800. I've done it for audiences as small as 10. I've done it for children. I've done it for adults. I've done it for conferences and gatherings all over the place.
You've done it specifically for us, for your viewers.
I did, in fact. Yeah. I did. In fact, and I've done it kind of in Norwegian as well. When I was over in Norway with Kent Thorvaldsen, we had a Norwegian audience, but I still managed to do it because, I had help with the translations. But the thing that people find interesting everywhere I've done this is when they look at the time scales on the Earth, they can't really understand how long a billion years really is. But you know what a billion years on toilet paper rolls? Watching the blank paper go by for billions of years, you say, wow, nothing's happening. And it's sort of true, but not true. I mean, oxygen was building up in the atmosphere for several billion years, and then, the bottom line was that this whole procedure showed people how, at the end, it was only 18 inches long. Okay, the final piece where everything was happening was 18 inches long. Okay, that's where the explosion of life occurred. And they discovered that came from the Cambrian up to the Cambrian era, like, way back, over 500 million years ago to today. That's where all the real things happened. And Cambrian era was about at about 4 feet back. But when you got to the KT boundary, that is to say 65 million years ago, when the dinosaurs were wiped out, when you got to that, people were astonished to see that on this 117-foot roll of toilet paper, that was just 18 inches ago. All right? And then they're like, wow. And I say, that's right. Dinosaurs are recent history, not ancient history. Yeah. And Daryl was talking about the aha moment. I saw so many jaws agape over the years doing this, showing people this realization. And they walk out almost like they saw, in a sense, like either an accident or a good movie. I can't tell you which. They had that look on their face, like, I'm kind of lost, or maybe they're.
It's a hard concept to grasp, and that's a very clever way of visually representing it. And people can grasp that, and that's, you know, I mean, you know this, you hear about it, you kind of get it, but like, you can't, like, how do you express such a huge concept, you know? There's a very clever way of doing it, actually.
Well, I just couldn't see how I could illustrate for people how the years look, you know, because telling them numbers doesn't cut it. It just doesn't work.
Well, how can you even fathom how long a billion years is? Let alone, you know,
Exactly.
multiple, like, it's a
You
number that you can kind of, you know, appreciate, but, like,
yes.
I personally could never get my head around that. Maybe a few people that really dedicate themselves to it can, but
Yeah.
it gets out of hand too fast.
Oh, and it does. And you're exactly right about that. So, what do you do? I mean, how do you manage it? Well, you manage it by trying to figure out a way to illustrate this thing in a visual way that's both kind of funny, because people love to learn with humor. They love to learn with things that are funny. So, I have probably 350 notations on this toilet paper as I'm unrolling it. And I don't ever have notes that I follow to do those, because people know when you're reading stuff. So it has to come out of your head. You have to have this information. You got to know what you're talking about, in other words, right? So when you do it and you get questions, you can't sit there and say, oh, I don't know, when you just told them something you should have known, you know? So when I did the toilet paper thing, in fact, the most important thing is that people walk away with a sense of understanding of how Earth was made. This is just the Earth now. I'm working on another one that's going to be the history of the universe on a roll of toilet paper. And people are going to be surprised to see just how little the Earth figures into that, you know. And ostensibly, you know, I mean, 13.8 billion years is, well, how old the universe was until the Hubble constant stopped being a constant. And that made us now re-engineer an age of the universe that's now under 12.5 billion years old, maybe. Jury's out on that. But Earth is only 4.6 billion out of all that. And, you know, races could have come and gone in that time. They could have come and gone. Before we even came around, there could have been a tremendous race of beings while our sun was just being formed, maybe. And Amal, that's great. And even so, maybe they rose to prominence, maybe they killed themselves off, or maybe they rose to prominence and then dispersed throughout the universe. Maybe we are they. Maybe we're a group or something, but I think that we would have been quite advanced. And to answer the questions about toilet paper, I was not hoarding toilet paper, Amanda. But it's a funny question about where's Mark getting all this toilet paper? I've actually only had to make up 2 rolls. Okay, I'm very good at maintaining the cleanliness and integrity of my toilet paper. Well, the routine, right? So yeah, in fact, I did cheat a little bit. I went to a wallpaper store and I bought 4-inch crepe paper and bought basically several hundred feet of it. And I stuck it up on a roller and made a little rolling device where I rolled it through onto a flat, hard surface, and I would write the notes and keep rolling, write the notes, number it. First thing I did was make all the sheets, every 4 inches for all the sheets. And that's why I told you I have no life. And then I just kept going and then went right back through the whole thing. I rolled it up from the other side, rolled it up from this side, and just rolled it out again. You had to go through it about 4 times to add the different eras, the different things, and different colors. And it's worth it when you see people's faces, especially when, you know, you're, say, the person who is holding the point on Earth when oxygen was exploding into the atmosphere, you know, and forming oxygenated atmosphere. That was around 2.4 to 2.7 billion years ago. And I'll never forget, in the Ozarks, I was doing this for, as I said before, 800 people there. And Hugh, the guy named Hugh, was this particular location, and he was oxygen forming in the atmosphere. And I didn't refer to that event, I referred to Hugh. I said, and then we have Hugh. Hugh, your event was oxygen forming in the atmosphere. Okay, and when was that? 2.7 billion years ago. All right, see, that's Hugh. And it makes it a personal experience so that they never forget. They go home, I was oxygen in the atmosphere. Kind of like a little kids in a play or something. I don't know. But it's a nice thing, to do. And it really does seat in your mind very well what the universe looks like, what the Earth looks like, and the history, the chronology of what happened here. So much happened on the Earth, and the Earth looked the same for many billions of years, And then when life took hold, it literally exploded exponentially, and that's the thing that people, have to understand. That's the basis of my book, right? The Populated Universe. That book, the basis was that life is the rule, not the exception. And I use the Earth as an example of what happens when life gains a foothold. And then we talk about other planets that could have life. We talk about, the Drake equation a little bit without going into the math at all. We just talk about how many different planets there could be that are like Earth in our universe, or in our galaxy first, and then in the universe as a whole. And the number undoubtedly reaches trillions in the lowest of estimates. Okay, and that's Earth-like planets. Now we say, well, does that mean that there's intelligent life there? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And that's the one that keeps us all going and keeps us doing streams like this. And speaking of streams, we just looked at M13 in Hercules, and I would like to take us now down to one other thing. I'm going to go to, first of all, I'm going to take us to Sulafat, which is a star.
Can you please go back to M13 before you move?
Oh, I think we're too late. But you want to show the propeller? Because I already have the image of it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Can you see the propeller there tonight? Lower left quadrant of the cluster.
So
three blade propeller. One blade is sticking straight up, and the other two are at 120 degrees each to it.
Are these the stars that make one of the propeller blades, or are these?
Negative, lower left corner.
So here.
Yes. No.
Here?
Farther up than that. Up and to the right. Up and to the right.
This little
Right
dark
there.
area?
That dark. Yeah, that's one of the blades of the propeller right there.
Okay.
And there's another to the lower right of it, and then there's one sticking up.
But it's not symmetric to the cluster.
Not in the center, no. It's to the lower left-hand corner.
Okay. So you got that one, and you say there's another one? Is this another one?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's the third one sticking straight up from there.
That one?
Yep.
Okay. Very,
All
very
right.
interesting.
Carry on. I'll be right back.
No worries. I'll be right here. Okay.
And while you're moving around, Ronald wants to know if you can show clusters on your spectrograph or spectrometer or whatever it was. Spectrometer.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Very good.
If you have that on, can we see that in the cluster? That would be pretty cool.
Actually, let me show you. I don't have the spectrometer on because it's sitting in here with me and I'm testing it. But what I do have, all right, we're looking at Sulafat right here. This is one of the stars in that area. Let me get off of here and let's go back to... I'm going to go back to filter wheels. It's going to be all black for this one because that's actually just a black disc. But this is the spectral wheel right here. And these are the spectra. This is the spectra of Sulafat right here. And all the companion stars. And if we were to take a, let's say, 20-second photo, and let's turn off the tracking for this. Okay, so we'll turn off tracking, Okay, and
This is one of my earliest memories from SkyTour LiveStream, just so you know.
Okay, and now,
Spectrograms, yeah.
yeah, now we're gonna take an image, and these spectra are now traveling slowly across the frame. So when we see them, they're going to be large bands, and that's going to help us see. This is not the spectroscope we're looking at. The spectroscope I have is going to be literally 1,000 times more sensitive than what we're about to see. 1,000 times. That's pretty good. Okay, so this is that's kind of yeah. So that's what it looks like right now, and we could possibly examine and see. We don't want to see these horizontal lines. We want vertical lines in here, and when we look at it with the spectroscope, those are going to be a lot more clear. But this shows you the light the stars are made up of anyway. You know, there's a continuum. All right, so now what I have to do is now come back in here and turn back on the tracker. I said we got the tracker running. Good, Scotty. We have got to stay tracking. If we don't, we'll die. And there we go. So that's Sulfat now. And now what I'll do is get off of this and go to the somewhat wider narrow band filter. And now we're going to take ourselves to a wonderful spot in the heavens. It's actually the Ring Nebula Measure 57. Oh yeah, here we go. All right.
And when we're done here, I have another request for something to view.
Awesome.
If possible.
Okay.
I think it is.
All right, let's go see. This is the Finder star that's moving to. It looks familiar, doesn't it? It's actually finding, I believe, on Sulfat again. And then it's going to center it up, and then it's going to zip out of shot and kind of go this way a little bit. You'll see it go up that way. And it's going to be heading for the Ring Nebula, which when this goes out of the shot, that's when it's heading for it. There we go. And now we'll have the Ring Nebula right around here, I believe. All right. And so the stars, we're pulling into the stars here, ladies and gentlemen. We're just pulling right in. Welcome all my friends to the show that never ends. You don't even know that song, Amanda.
Gave me the lamb chop feel, but those aren't the words.
Lamb chop?
Yeah.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends.
Yeah.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and
That's
I believe
right.
it's called Carnival 9 from Brain Salad Surgery.
You made it back just in time, Daryl.
Yes, he did.
No, I was thinking, this is a song that never ends.
Oh.
Sorry for any earworms that might have caused.
Oh, nonsense. Okay, let's first do a finder shot here, and the finder shot will actually be pretty good because the Ring Nebula is pretty easy. We're gonna do it 5,000 ISO for 15 seconds, 13 seconds. All right, and this is going to be. There's the ring. Right there, and we're looking at it with the. Now, of course, now I got to go back to. I'm going to go back to white light on this because when we look at it with the filter is got to require a refocus. But I just wanted to find it. It is there, and you'll see that it's actually standing up because it is on. It's on a deep angle on the telescope. And this is the proper direction for it. Okay, let's go back to our shot here and just bring it up into the field a little more. Okay, that's pretty good. And now what we'll do is we'll go over to find the straight through view And now you'll see more stars show up. See? More stars. And you can even see the Ring Nebula right here. If you're very careful about looking, you can actually see it. This camera is quite sensitive. All right, and now I can cut down the time here. I'll cut it down to 8 seconds. And we can actually cut this down to about 3,200 or 6,400. 3,200 will do. And now we'll just do an 8-second shot. I'm assuming that my tracker is going, but we don't need it for this short of a shot. On a Hana 77, it is in fact ELP, like you said. Yep, and like Daryl said, yep.
Carnival 9, I do believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, my brain is fried. I'm confusing everything lately, and
That's okay.
I don't know. That just struck in my head. And Mark, every time you're mid-sentence and you stop for a second, I'm auto-filling in random lines from songs. I didn't pick up on that one, so
That's funny.
thank God for mute. Yeah.
Ah. Now here's an interesting thing. This guy right here, this is the Ring Nebula. Obviously it looks like a ring, okay? But look right in the center. You see that? There is a star in here, that little white, that's actually a white dwarf in the middle here. Right there. That little tiny guy, that's actually the remnant of the star that made this nebula. It's a beautiful nebula, isn't it? I mean, I really like this. Now we're going to take a longer shot to get more color out of it here in just a minute. And we're not going to...
It's quite simple, but I really do like it. It's very pretty.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
You say it's quite simple, but you know what? There's so much complexity to this nebula that we actually don't understand how it really looks and what its true nature is. There's some school of thought that says it's actually a long barrel, and we're looking right down the barrel just coincidentally of a nebula that could be kind of strange looking. Maybe that's true.
I think I got caught on that concept the first time you explained it to me, but I know what you mean. I truly understand what you mean. And I have a feeling that's something that took me a long time to wrap my head around. I think I grilled you pretty hard on that one.
You
What
have.
do you mean? What do you mean?
No, I don't mind that. That's all good.
I know. Well, that's why I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, okay, if you notice, gosh, it's a beautiful night. So you can see now, you can actually, you can really see now the beauty of this nebula. Okay, when you look at this now, you actually see this beautiful red perimeter all the way around. And, you see that central star right there, which I think is around 14th magnitude. I'd have to look that up. And you're looking at the blue here. This is the blue of the Cat's Eye Nebula that we look at. It's the blue of the Dumbbell Nebula, which we may look at. And this coloration comes from a particular element. And I want to ask Amanda if she knows what that element is. What element makes this blue?
Double oxygen?
That's right.
I don't know how to say it. Is it double oxygen or oxygen 2? O2?
Yes, it's O3 actually, doubly ionized.
O3.
Yeah, because O1.
I was thinking you had another number, even though the name is 2. You have a third.
Yeah, and.
But I can't. So oxygen 3 is what you call it, and it's doubly oxygenized.
No.
What?
Close. No. Doubly ionized.
Doubly ionized oxygen.
Yep. That means that 2 electrons are shot off the oxygen atoms. Okay. And this guy right here is actually pretty interesting because when we see this blue, we also see that ring of red around the outside, and that ring of red can be hydrogen alpha, and it can be neon, it can be other elements that actually generate emission lines that are in the red. When we look at this with this spectrograph, we're going to actually see the emission lines of this nebula. And that's going to be really pretty. And we can do it either continuously or we can take a snapshot of it. And we'll actually be able to disassemble how this thing was made. And I'm just aching. I cannot wait to do this, But look, that's just me. I'm just the guy sitting under the nebula right here looking at it going, wow, I cannot wait to look at you and take you apart, man.
I can't believe you haven't tried to position it so your head's right in the circle.
Well, I don't want to take away the view from people. I'm not the star of the show. This is, right? Don't you think? Yeah. Yeah, so what I'll do now
It
is...
would be tempting, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, I'm not I don't want to be a showboat about it, you know? I'm actually going to drop down, go to lower noise level, 2000 ISO, and then go up by 30 seconds here. So I want to get a cleaner view of this nebula right now. Let me explain what that means. This here, this number here is the sensitivity. 2000 is the sensitivity. Most cameras go up to like 6400. Some cameras go to 12,800. Some go to, 50,000, 51,200. And those are sensitivity levels. But every time you have this higher sensitivity, you also get noise on the chip. And that means that when we look at the Ring Nebula, for instance, right? And let me just bring it in here because it's going to show you. So we look at the Ring Nebula here, right? And if we look at the Ring Nebula we just took, okay, you can see the relative increase in the noise. You see this dark blotchiness right here? This is what we got at that ISO that we used of 3200, I believe. And then we just did one at 2000. And look, see how much less there is of this noise? That's very important. So we want to try and get that minimized, and that's what we're doing. So I think that's, like I said, now this is what was called a planetary nebula, just like you were talking about earlier, Amanda. This star here used to be, other than a white dwarf, it used to be a star that had more mass, but it had about the mass of the sun, maybe slightly more. And when it used up its hydrogen, then it started to fuse other elements that it had in its composition, namely helium. And hydrogen fuses into helium, helium fuses into carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. And so when that happened, the star would begin to pulsate. Okay, uses up hydrogen. Okay, so let me just show you here, just to give you an idea. When the star uses up its hydrogen, and it begins to shrink as there's less fuel, so it begins to compress and contract. As it does so, more hydrogen and other elements are brought into the center that are on the outside here that don't fuse. Only the stuff in the core fuses over here, okay? Only this core fuses. This other stuff is just the envelope. And it's very hot. It's only protons and loose electrons, so it's plasma, right? And as it contracts, after it runs out of hydrogen, it's contracting, it's getting hotter in that center. And as it does that, more of these elements are brought toward the center. And it starts fusion again as it brings more fuel from the outside of the star toward the middle. And then it starts to fuse again, and it expands. And that can pulsate like this. And sometimes when it does that, hydrogen will start burning into helium that's in the middle again because it's been drawn into the center. But now it's also hot enough for the helium fuel outside the core to also begin to fuse. And when that happens, the star begins to blow. And that becomes a red giant at that point. And that red giant star can last hundreds of thousands of years or more. And then when it starts exhausting those other fuels inside, the star just begins to contract slowly but surely. Okay? Until finally, when all the fuels are gone, it contracts into the only thing that's left is this very, very small, very compact thing about the size of the Earth called a white dwarf. This thing right here that you're looking at, all right, this guy right here is about the size of the Earth. All right. Yeah, you. Okay. And as at the size of the Earth, this object is giving off a lot of ultraviolet radiation. Very, very hot, very, very powerful. That radiation is so hot and so powerful that, this gas out here, which came from these pulsations when the star was getting big and then it would get small again, these outer layers would kind of get sloughed off and that's what these are here. And they weren't really visible at that point. They became visible when the white dwarf phase came out upon the star's life. And when it happened like that, the ultraviolet radiation would cause the oxygen to ionize out here. So an electron gets jumped off and another electron. And then other materials get ionized, neon and helium or hydrogen out here. And what happens is now you got loose electrons out there. And then they gain energy and they leave the atom. They got so much energy, they go, whoa, we left the atom. But then as they bump into each other out there and bump into other things, they lose some energy. And then they get recombined, and they recombine with the atom. That's called recombination. And when they recombine, they give off light. And depending on where they fall in the atom, the light can be a certain color. All right? And that is the wavelength that they give off. Oxygen atoms give off this characteristic blue. That's what they do. Hydrogen gives off a characteristic red, so does neon, so do other elements. So, we see this happening with these planetary nebulae all over the place. All right, so when we see other planetary nebulae, we know that they're planetary nebulae because they might have a blue envelope around them. And we know that the blue envelope here is, this blue envelope is going to be an envelope of oxygen. All right, and doubly ionized oxygen, as a matter of fact. So you see, it's really interesting how this can work. So I think that looking at the Ring Nebula, for instance, is really kind of a cool way to look at our own solar system, because someday our sun may look like this. It may be a white dwarf. And just a note on the white dwarf, by the way. When we see a star get so compressed, okay, in the center like this, after it compresses down, you might say, well, why didn't it make a black hole? Well, it didn't make a black hole because it wasn't massive enough. It gets to a certain point as it collapses. The star begins to collapse. Now, what happens is the protons and the electrons are packed so tightly together in that star that the electrons literally are right up against each other. Think of a grid, okay? Think of a square grid with boxes like a checkerboard, and put an electron in each box. You can't have more than one electron in each box, all right? But they can push out and maintain the integrity of that box. So you know that if you fill all those boxes together and with a single electron in each one, you can't crush it any more than that. If the star is a certain mass, and that certain mass is just over one solar mass. All right, so the electrons can't get crunched anymore, and they're able to withstand the pressure to be crushed. So they push back with their own pressure, and that maintains this star. It maintains the white dwarf, and that pressure is called electron degeneracy pressure. Now, if the star was more massive, then maybe what would have been left behind here is a star that's a step beyond the white dwarf. In other words, it would collapse right through the white dwarf stage and go to something called a neutron star, where now you just have neutrons that are there in the surface of the star. And the surface of the star is kind of weird to hear this, but the surface of the star could be as hard as a billiard ball. Okay. And if you crack the surface, then you could disrupt that star. So colliding neutron stars are kind of a really bad thing, but it's happened. In a star that's more massive that can make a neutron star, the pressures needed to make that happen usually come in the form of a supernova. The star has to be more massive. It makes enough of an explosion that it'll disrupt itself, goes to pieces basically. But in the middle, the star that's the remnant that's left behind is just a neutron star. You know, it would be left in the middle here. That'd be just a neutron star there. All right. But in this particular case, because it's a lower mass, we don't have it as a neutron star. We don't have that there. So now above the mass is where a neutron star can prevent itself from being collapsed, and that's neutron degeneracy pressure. Okay. Above that, you have the black hole, where it pushes past the white dwarf, pushes past neutron star, and goes right to a black hole. And that's probably the most mysterious thing of all, you know. And Daryl, did he already go? You still there?
No, I'm here.
Okay,
I need to go though. If you'll excuse me, please.
Yeah, no worries. Let's all thank Daryl for being here. Thank you, Daryl. You made this a wonderful thing. You had some wonderful information for us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Mark,
Hey.
Amanda, take care. Good night, everybody.
Take care, Daryl.
Take care.
I will. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
He brings so much to the show. Oh my god.
He does. He
has wonderful analogies. Like you with the toilet paper, like he can actually explain it in things like the majority of people have experienced, so they can really relate, like they can visualize what he's talking about, and then again you blow it up for space size.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know. So another interesting thing I just want to mention about these planetary nebulae, then we'll go to the next one. I was just waiting for it to get a little higher in the sky. These planetary nebulae have a certain theoretical limit to their size. Now, why is that? Well, it's a visual limit, a limit to visually how they'll appear. Because white dwarfs, okay, these white dwarfs have, heavy ultraviolet radiation, but that radiation diminishes as you get farther from the star. Okay, so there's only a certain radius around these white dwarfs where this gas can be caused to glow like this. All right, and it seems to be that distance is about a light year. Actually, it's about a half a light year because the overall diameter is about a light year. So the diameter of this guy, when it's at its full extent, will be that we can see now visually. It's about a light year. There could be tons more material out here that's not glowing in this planetary nebula. All right, but that's why in this particular case, that's why, and not just this one, but many planetary nebula, that's why it's so hard to tell how far away a planetary nebula is, because there could be so much more out here that we don't see, and that would imply longer time for it to get out there, or it would imply that it's closer and bigger. So we don't really have that information. We can't really detect that. So that's part of the reason they're so hard to figure out distances too. So I'm going to go now back to...
Wait a second. We have a viewing request.
Okay.
Amal wants to know if we can look at one of the edge-on galaxies. He finds them mesmerizing.
Oh, I totally agree, Amal. And the one I would choose...
disappointment in your voice.
Yeah, you know why? Because the one I want to look at is right near the moon. And so with the lunar cycle as it is, we won't see the edge-on galaxy at all, because it'll be just a cloud, sort of a gray edge. We're not going to get to see it in all the splendorous detail, unfortunately. So I apologize for that.
What cycle of the moon does it have to be at to be able to see it well?
With no moon near it at all, no moon in the sky. And the moon is right, actually, in Virgo, thereabouts, which is right where the edge-on galaxy.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's full or not then. That's what I was thinking. It was too bright, but it's actually that it's too close. Okay.
Oh no, it's too bright, and the moon brightens the sky. If it was a crescent moon, it wouldn't be a problem. But
that's what I was wondering. Yeah, like if it's full, it's hard to see anything around it, and if it's
like it is now. Yeah, once you get
it's easier.
Yeah, once you get past first quarter, you're right, Amal.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, once you get past first quarter, which was a few days ago, I mean that happens. So I'm sorry about that.
And what time is best to see it?
When
obviously when it's furthest away from it, but
when it's highest in the sky is the best time.
And as high as in the sky. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna check something here. We're going to I'm going to get us. Yes. Hold on, folks. I'm just going to initiate this. This is the camera, the auto sky, all sky camera. I went out earlier and actually saw some clouds. I was like, no, don't you dare.
I heard that's what happened to you last night.
Yeah, we got clouded out. And I waited. I gave people a chance. It was a reasonably good night too. We're gonna do 40 seconds, and we're gonna take a photo here, and then come back to it and see how it looks. Because I noticed when I was looking at this that these stars disappeared for a short period of time, and then they came back. So something might have been blocking them. But there's something else I want to take us to while we're in this area, and this is something you've seen before, but I love it and you love it too.
Is it the Cat's Eye Nebula?
No. No, not the cat's eye. But something
Sorry, I
equally
guess I should probably look at the screen. I
Something-
can't see the screen.
equally interesting. Why can't you? I shared it.
Because I'm blind as a bat. I can't see the words that small. The writing's too small for me.
Oh, okay. Within Skype, we gotta maximize Skype probably.
Well, I have the side chat open too, so it's making the main screen a little smaller,
Okay.
just so I can throw questions in. But
Okay.
even like I physically lean forward to get closer to the screen, and I can't make out what letters those are.
Okay. Okay, this is. It should stay here because that's the star I told it to go to. Okay, that is Alberio. Alberio is the head of Cygnus the Swan. And the colors are just amazing. And now, because we're in white light right now, I'd like to take a short exposure to kind of show you the colors. Let's do. We're going to do 10 seconds at. It'll be dim, but it'll be. Yeah, we can do 10 seconds at like 1200 or so. Okay. Ready? 10 seconds at 1250. 8 seconds at 1250 is actually better. Here we go. And we're going to see some color. And I want you to see this beautiful double star. And we've got a little red of the dome, I think, in there. No, a little bit. Yeah, you can see the spikes. Those spikes are from the dome. Look at this beautiful K star and this beautiful B star. These together in space are gorgeous, and they are a true binary pair. Alberio is a double star in which these two stars will orbit each other, and this star and this star are separated by thousands of astronomical units. So beyond our Kuiper belt, by far, it's like I think it's 5,000 astronomical units, and they're still gravitationally bound to each other. Isn't that incredible? What a beautiful star!
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It is. It's just
It is.
gorgeous.
That orange is stunning.
It is, and especially when we're not using a filter. We're just letting it be the natural light. But for what I want to look at next, I have to go move the dome. You up for that?
Okay.
Can you handle it? Can all the people?
I was just about to say I was about to grab a pop, but no, I'll wait until you get back. Sure.
Grab a pop. Yep.
Yeah.
I know.
Soda.
I know.
It's in there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's okay. Because I would just like to see.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. That's okay.
Supernova. Yeah. I will go take care of moving that dome then.
Okay.
All right. And just 1 second.
All right, chat. What should I talk about?
Okay. I'll be right back.
Okay.
It's all yours. It's all
Oh my
you,
God.
Amanda.
Ah! My brain isn't working for this. I got nothing, guys. I don't know. I've been in a daze lately. I don't know. I don't know what's anything. Well, okay. Well, I know SpaceX had a nice launch. It got postponed. I think it was supposed to be the 27th and got postponed to Saturday. Unfortunately, I missed it, but I heard it was a success, and they met up with the ISS today. So yay! I hear it's the first time America has been able to launch from their home country in several years. So, good job, guys. Glad everything was a success. I mean, I probably wouldn't watch those kind of things on my own, but I know our friend Bill was streaming them, and I like being around the community. It's just kind of like something exciting you can share with all your friends. So I like the community aspect and the fun of it and stuff. I don't get that if I watch it by myself. So, I'm sorry I missed it with you guys. I bet it was fun though, but it's I kind of get nervous watching too because it's almost like you're waiting for an explosion. Like I hate to say that, but like it's the same as like NASCAR. Like people enjoy it and everything, but like you're kind of a little nervous every time you watch it because you know very well how quickly it can go wrong and what that means. Unfortunately we have seen it live, so I can never shake that. Whenever anyone does a launch, I'm always like, you know, am I prepared to follow this through? Like, so I wonder if you guys have that same reaction, and if you guys make the NASA comparison as well. NASCAR. Not sure what else has been going on. I will check. There's one site I really like. Let me check there and see if anything's going on. Oh, no. I think Mark's back to save me though. I'm Googling as fast as I can.
How'd you do?
I don't know. No, not only them all responded, so I might have put them all to sleep. Or maybe they all took a break too. When you went out, they all ran for a drink and ran to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. No, I didn't. I was trying to think. I don't know what's been going on lately, and then I remembered the SpaceX thing, so I just kind of ranted, and then you got back. I was gonna look up to see if anything else of interest was going on to share with people, but I guess you walk faster than I type, so.
Oh, that's okay. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? What a pair. And those are just beautiful luminaries, man. I'll tell you. And I will show you the all sky camera so you can see what I see. Yeah, see that?
That's cool.
Those are clouds.
That's a pretty cool image, though, for pictures.
Yeah. And those are clouds that are encroaching right now. So our night is going to be cut a little short. However, I would like to take us to one more spot before that. And hopefully we can see what I want to show you. This is a little taste of summer to come here. And we'll just go back to this first of all. There's Alberio. And let's go here, and we're here, and we're going to get a taste of summer to come. You'll watch the stars race away. It's actually using Alberio as the centering. Hello, Alberio. Don't get too close. You're a little hot. Okay. Yeah, it's using it to center, and then it's going to go racing away. Don't worry. You'll see it vanish here as it goes zipping off in a moment. Hey, you have to get away. Don't come near me. Don't you hit me. There. Okay, good. And now we're going to a nebula that's everybody's favorite.
Is it the Cat's Eye Nebula?
No.
Well, then it's not everybody's favorite.
Yeah, I know it isn't. So why'd you say cat's eye? Bum. Just kidding.
Funny guy.
Yeah, I'm a mushroom. I'm a fungi.
Oh, wow. These puns are getting bad. Maybe I'll go get my pop now.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll be back in a sec.
No problem. Okay, we're just taking this picture here, a little finder shot to make sure it's here. I think it's going to be down here. Well, there it is. It's right there, but and that was right. When I go like this, it's down here. Okay, why is it red? Darn it all. It must be still in the clouds. Well, we're going to try it anyway. We shall try it anyway. All right, guys. Thank you for sticking with me, those that have. Nice to see you guys had come out to enjoy this tonight. And I'll go to say, let's run to right. Let's go 30 seconds. Let's try to actually go for it, right? Okay, we're gonna go 30 seconds at 12,800. Why not? Give it a shot. I should have a guide in the star, but if I don't, you'll see some streaking. Anahata 77 says a beautiful pair. Yeah, the Alberio looks like one star to your eye when you look at it, but when you look at it in the telescope, you see these two beautiful blue and orange stars. I mentioned this before. When I was a kid, I could have sworn that one of the components of Alberio was green, but as I learned, getting the astronomy degree, there are no green stars. Oh, yeah, see, that's the Dumbbell Nebula, guys. Yeah, we really need to view this through a filter. So let's take a look at it through the filter now. We'll do the same exposure. Actually, we change it up a little bit. I'm gonna move it up a little bit and bring it higher in our view. Okay, that should now be good. And I gotta leave it there. I'm gonna now come down here and change. Okay, 1 is a very narrow band filter. Don't want that, but I want 2, which is a somewhat wider narrow band filter. And now we're going to do an exposure of 30 seconds at 16,000. We'll go up a stop. We should have our guide star by now. It takes the telescope 11 seconds to lock on. Okay. I know they're just blank star, blank sky, but you know what? It really is pretty. Okay, so this is the white light shot, and now the wider narrow band is going to have a different look. And it's looking purple, not because of any other reason, but that we're still looking at some of the murk right now, unfortunately. Hello, Cindy Murphy. Nice to see you. Yeah, so I guess we are stuck for the time being. Dumbbell's gonna be beautiful when summer rolls around, that's for sure. But I think we did all right tonight. We spent a lot of time on the moon because the moon was dominant, and to give you guys a little update, that's what we looked at tonight. Okay, we had the moon, looked really pretty. Really, really nice detail in the moon. That showed up very, very nicely. You could see some of the areas on the moon, different color lavas and all that. This here is what's called Rupes Recta. It's actually called the Straight Wall. And it's pretty long, and it's basically a large ridge that's like a scarp. Okay, kind of. It's higher on this side and it drops down low on this side, and we checked that out too. We also looked at some of the weirdly colorful areas in the moon, like this one, this area, and this again in real color, real colors. You can actually see the this really weird, almost orangey soil that's at this point in the moon, amid this gray lava, which is interesting. Then we have areas elsewhere in the moon that have these beautiful ray structures, like this is Copernicus crater, very, very gossamer looking. Daryl called it a splat, and I guess that, I can understand. Kind of looks like that. And then up north, we see the lighter brown lavas, and these are cool too. And look at the sharp borders they have on them over there, and they're bordered by some that are even darker. Look at that. And then lighter. Just an amazing sight, And so we spent time looking at this amazing little mini planet, which isn't even a planet. And we saw very important craters in our culture. Okay, this one that I'm about to show you, that's Tycho. That is a very important crater in our culture, as is this one. This is Clavius crater. This is very important in our culture because of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Clavius crater is where the moon base was from that movie. And the black monolith was found at a dig site in Tycho crater. It was called TMA1, Tycho Moon Anomaly 1. Yeah, pretty cool. But yeah, and because of the way the moon's moving over the course of the night, we could detect a change in the way the shadows look on the moon. So I'm going all the way to the beginning of the night. Actually, I've got to go. I actually took pictures of it here during the day. See, and I couldn't broadcast them because the computer wasn't working right. But you could see, for instance, how when you look at it, you can see, for instance, let me go back down here to, come on you. Okay, I'll go up here. Go to Copernicus. Okay, this is what Copernicus looked like tonight, several hours ago, okay? Now if we look at what it looks like in the most recent photo. Okay, I'm gonna go grab that. Okay, that's this guy. And I have to alright, we'll bring it in. You'll notice this shadow is smaller than it was. I know you want to see the other one now, huh? But the shadow's smaller now because the sun is rising higher as the moon goes around more. The moon's being illuminated, and this shadow is cutting into a much smaller size later. And so we actually see changes on the lunar surface with the moving shadows. So see that skinny shadow? So let's go over to a few hours earlier and get over to Copernicus now again. And see that? Here the shadow is thicker and bigger. Okay? And that is the universe in motion right there. You're watching the moon circle around and orbit the Earth. In any case, lots more of that stuff to be had on future SkyTour live streams. I want to thank you for your attendance tonight. I really enjoyed having you all for company, and I will be back again to see you on the next clear night. I don't know if Amanda is here or if she's gone to get a soda still. Amanda, are you back? We're going to be stopped streaming by the time she gets back. That's okay. In any case, once again, thanks, guys. I am going to. I'll leave the moon up as we close out tonight. All right. So good to see you. Thanks for coming. I look forward to being your tour guide to the heavens once again on the next SkyTour Livestream. So we'll see you later, and good night, guys.